Oh no, parts has gone offline, exiting host mode. Whatever shall I do? Okay. Drink of water. How long is this? Answer, very. Okay. Going to shamelessly self-promote myself a little more. I wish I had a third monitor. And Nightbot died for some reason. Okay, whatever. The monster infrequent update. No. Grim Dawn version 1.1.7.0. Yay. The monster infrequent update is upon us. Text. 30 new monster infrequents, most of which are available if you only own the base game. Big if true. Spoilers, it's true. All these monster infrequents will require farming, of course, which is why we made major changes to make farming actually fun. We are thrilled to have this latest for the full list, yeah. v1.1.7.0, major new features. Many bosses in the base game that previously had no unique loot have received the monster infrequent treatment. 30 new monster infrequents have been added to the base game, and an additional 5 added to Ashes of Malmouth and Forgotten Gods. For the record, that's 5 between Ashes of Malmouth and Forgotten Gods, not 5 to each expansion. So 35 MIs in total. Monster infrequents now feature item steal modifiers in the base game, and no longer require Ashes of Malmouth. Legendary item modifiers remain exclusive to expansions. I am very curious, possibly to go back to the base game, disable my expansions, and see what skill modifiers are possible via just MIs, and see what wacky things can be done at level 85. The Crucible DLC has 4 new maps, all of which look very amazing, and it's a shame that I don't play Crucible. Many epic items, this is the big one, many epic items from the base game that previously had no mythical version have had mythical versions added to the Forgotten Gods loot pool. For more details, see below, which we will eventually, maybe. Shattered Realm. Monster infrequents and unique from Steps of Torment, Bastion of Chaos, and Port Valbury no longer drop in the Shattered Realm. This is consistent with roguelike dungeons added in expansions. Same line here for Crucible. Which basically means Shazul's World Eater, the 3 Alkamos things, and I guess Ildor's MI, and the Lagoth Ak MI? Is that his name? I don't know. As well as the 3 Watchers in Port Valbury and the Decree of Aldrich from Port Valbury. Can no longer be obtained in the Shattered Realm or the Crucible. Fixed 3 issues which caused enemies to sometimes not leave their spawn points. If I'm not mistaken, another one was identified close to the end of testing, so it's possible a 4th will be fixed in a hotfix. I'm not sure about that, though. I think it was a little wacky. Oh no, it's Elon Musk. It's not. Hello, Elon Master. Blessing of Ulo. Blessing stuff that I don't understand because I don't play Crucible. Increased stats. Yay. Tech. Fixed an issue with prefixes and suffixes on items not merging racial bonuses properly. This was a very obscure thing, and I don't know whether it was a visual tooltip bug or an actual functional issue with the way stats worked on items, but essentially It's doing what it says. If you had plus damage to chthonic enemies on a prefix, and plus damage to chthonic enemies on a suffix, the two numbers would not sum to the value that they should, and I think it actually summed to a little bit lower. So now racial damage bonuses are stronger if you have two of them, but are technically the same if you only have one. And I'm pretty sure this was only, prefix, suffix. So if you had plus damage to chthonics on a prefix on your weapon, and then plus damage to chthonics on an amulet or something, those two should still sum ordinarily even before this got fixed. So this isn't really a huge widespread change that's going to affect the game too much. Fixed pressing start on a gamepad, not closing hard prompts, that's pretty funny. Increase the limit on simultaneous floating combat text tracking, that's a mouthful, to fix an issue where damage numbers would not appear when using some skills. I know I was told what this means. I don't remember what this means. I want to say this particularly had an effect on damage over time. As with this, or possibly as with this, everything was doing its damage correctly, it just wasn't looking like it was. Fixed a crash when trying to apply an illusion to an item that you do not meet the requirements for. How did the testers not find that after 700 years? Monsters that fall off the pathable area now suffer a swift death. Yo, there's kill boxes in Grim Dawn now. Wow. I never thought I'd see the day. Fixed soulbound equipment going into the transfer stash when equipping items with a gamepad. Game. Removed bonus % armor for monsters on elite and ultimate difficulty and for multiplayer scaling. This is a reduction of about 1 to 300 armor depending for bosses and above, depending on each independent enemy. It's not the biggest change in the universe, but it's definitely going to be noticeable for physical builds, given the way physical damage interacts with armor. Notably how different sources of physical damage interact with armor, which I'm not going to get into here. So big buff to physical, but statistically, if you're just looking at the before and after on Grim Tools, it's not going to look like very much. Reduced monster Aether resist by 3% on elite difficulty and 5% on ultimate difficulty. This sounds like a buff to Aether damage, but it's not, because Aether resist reduction kind of got nerfed everywhere else as well. So overall, this is a means of making Aether damage without Aether resist reduction better, but worse if you do have Aether resist reduction, to kind of narrow the gap between super amazing builds and mediocre builds. So that's that. Itemization. Increased drop rate of unique monster infrequents from Void-Light dungeon bosses. I forget, Xantai said it was plus 50%, which is multiplicative, which means, I believe, Alcamos rings go from 2% chance to 3% chance? Yay! Single affix rare items no longer drop past the early levels and will instead always roll with at least a magic affix as well. Single affix rare items. Okay, so only rare items get 2 affixes, but they get them always. A non-rare item, which means a non-monster infrequent, could theoretically roll with a single affix, but this has nothing to do with whether one affix is rare, and which would guarantee you a magic affix. Its base rare items get 2 affixes always. A non-base rare item can get rare prefix and not get a suffix at all. I probably made that more confusing than it had to be. All gear is now more likely to roll magic and rare affixes with damage types appropriate to it. For example, a Fire Scepter will be significantly more likely to roll affixes with fire damage, or a pet rain rolling affixes with pet bonuses. Praise RNGesus. This has been needed for years, a decade, almost a decade. Yeah, Grim Dawn's been in development since, what, 2011, 2012? I think 2011. Yeah, so it's been a decade of development, thereabouts. Faction, Bismiel Champion Pendant, increased bonus to Shadowing Smash at +3, no one cares. Bismiel Vial Seal, increased bonus to Markovian's Advantage, Reaping Strike, and Shadowing Smash at +3. Okay, this reminds me, I'm not going to talk too much about this, but in general, weapon pool skills on items across the board have been increased to +3. And weapon pool skills, we'll get to this toward the bottom of the patch, have had their ultimate ranks improved, because previously there kind of wasn't a reason to bother with going above the soft cap of a weapon pool skill, except for execution, I suppose. But that's being changed, and it's being made easier to go above the soft cap as well. So that's not just these two items. You will see this sort of thing at +3 a lot throughout the patch. Mark of Lethal Intense, increased acid damage modifiers for Dreeg's Evil Wine, Grasping Vines to 42 and 80. That's a lot of acid damage on Grasping Vines. And more on Spam DEE, which is pretty cool. It needs the help. Always has. Mark of the Shadow Queen, increased Aether damage modifier for Panetti's Replicating Missile to 60, and added 18% run speed reduction per 1 second modifier for it. Seems like a worse version of the total speed slow that some other item already gives it. I forget what that item is. But would you rather have run speed reduction? Would you prefer to have attack speed, cast speed, and run speed reduction? Faction, Mark of the Voracious One. Increased bonus, yeah. Same thing with Soleo, Mark of Blood, weapon pool skills going to +3. Magic affixes, trimmed various affixes out of the loot pool at lower levels. These affixes already did not drop for in-game content and were phased out around level 50. This now extends all the way through level 1. I believe this means low-level items could possibly... What's the term? There are low-level items that, with affixed combinations that you can no longer get, which is cool. Maybe. It's nice that it's only at low levels. It'd be a little whack if you couldn't get anything anymore at high levels. Magic prefixes, increased % cunning, % health, physique, spirit, and spirit values on magic prefixes. Aggressive prefix can once again be found on non-weapons at all levels. That doesn't mean on everything, right? Like, you can't get aggressive chest piece, can you? Stack % offensive ability on every piece of gear. Come out of elite difficulty with 7,000 offensive ability. That'd be pretty cool. Magic prefixes, increased conversion on flat damage magic prefixes to match values on rare affixes, which I think means from 10 to 15%. Magic prefixes, single, % fire, cold, lightning, pierce, and poison resist prefixes no longer drop after level 50. Existing items with these prefixes are unaffected, so kind of the same idea as this. % damage resist pair prefixes have had their values increased at levels 50+. Nice. Makes it easier to live off the land into higher difficulties. Magic suffixes, spell-weaving suffixes have been removed from the loot pool. As their values were equivalent to the single damage type suffixes, no changes were made to items that already have these suffixes on them, but items in 1.1.7.0 and beyond cannot generate this suffix category. Which everyone's celebrating about, and I celebrated about it too, and then I realized that this is a very, very, very small buff to drop rates. Because spell-weaving, it seems like it's chosen a lot, because there's so many different kinds of it, but rolling a spell-weaving suffix, of any of the possible kinds of spell-weaving suffixes, was about as common a thing as rolling any other magic suffix. So, removing spell-weaving is a very, very, very slight buff that I think is being overhyped, and I definitely overhyped it when it was announced. But that's my bet. So, you will certainly notice better items more frequently as a result of this, but not terribly much more frequently. Magic Suffixes. Increased health regeneration on mending and renewal suffixes. Rare prefix Flame Wall shield. Replaced Burn Retaliation with Fire Retaliation. Neat. Caustic shield. Increased Acid Retaliation. Neat. Relics. Absolution. Reduced % all retaliation damage to 100% and added 250% fire and acid retaliation damage on the granted skill. Trying to rein in the total retaliation bonuses that this relic gave to every build in existence, because it was the de facto retaliation relic choice, and it probably still is. Ancestor. Increased elemental damage for pets on the granted skill. I'm not a pet player. Blade Dancer's Talisman. Increased proc chance on the weapon pool granted skill to 15%. Same thing with the Blade Sworn Talisman. Blight. Updated values on the granted skill. We don't yet know how. Calamity. Reduced cooldown on the steel proc and increase its burn damage. Calamity's a very early relic, which should make it a slightly better choice for leveling. I think it was already kind of good for leveling, though. Corruption. Increased % chaos damage to 16%. That's not that much, is it? And poison retaliation to 55 over 5 seconds. Added 5% attack speed and 16% acid damage. Increased damage on the steel proc and replaced its % elemental resist reduction with 5% acid and chaos resist reduction. Cool. Equilibrium. Replace % chance of % elemental resist with guaranteed 25% elemental resist. Much better. And reduced cooldown on the steel proc and changed its activation type to 20% on hit. I don't think I know what Equilibrium's proc does. Off the top of my head. I don't know the low-level relics too often, because I only use the one that you get from the rovers. Wait. No. Fortitude. Increased internal trauma on the granted skill. Sure. Fortress. Reduced cooldown and increased % health regeneration on the granted skill. Is Fortress... No. I'm thinking of Juggernaut. Glacier. Reduced cooldown on the steel proc. Same thing with Gluttony. I feel like I know what Gluttony does, but I'm not going to say it on air and be proven wrong. Gunslinger's Talisman. Increased proc chance on the granted weapon pool skill to 15%, just like the Blade Dancers and Blade Sworn Talisman. Heart added 4% health and reduced the resist reduction to 8% for both Aether and Vitality resist reduction on the granted skill. Hysteria. Reduced cooldowns, plural, and increased damage on the summoned pet's special attacks. Oh, okay. So this should be plural. Estranger's Balance. Replaced % attack and % cast speed with % total speed. This was actually pretty nice. This is a sideways buff to everyone asking for more movement speed on casters. Juggernaut, one of my favorite relics that I never use anymore. Increased heal on the steel proc and changed its activation type to 15% on hit. I think that's a nerf because I think it used to be X% chance on attack. I don't remember though. Marauder's Talisman, 15% chance to use the weapon pool skill. Mistborn Talisman added 10% attack speed to the granted skill, which is kind of neat. I think there was a thread recently about making the non-mastery auto-attack replacers better. And this, despite being such a low level, is kind of neat to see 10% attack speed buff to it. Rampage, reduced duration and cooldown on the steel proc. Ruination, reduced cooldown on the steel proc. Neat. Sacrifice, increased health cost and reduced cooldown and duration on the granted skill, so you can use it more frequently, but it costs more to use. I wasn't aware of anyone using Sacrifice, so I don't know if this is necessary, but it's not out of the question that it was being used, because it does give you a good chunk of vitality damage, if I'm not mistaken. Sanctuary, adjusted % chance of stun retaliation to 20% of one set. What? Adjusted chance of stun retaliation to. Okay, it's saying 20% chance to stun enemies for 1 second as retaliation, but it's worded very oddly. Reduced cooldown on the steel proc and changed its activation type to 25% chance on hit. Again, I don't know its former activation type. Yeah. Savage increased damage on the summoned pet's special attacks. Haven't seen Savage in a long time, if ever. Serenity added 5% run speed. Ho 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 ho. Okay. I have always loved Serenity. I will take the free speed on all of the 20 builds I have that use it. Slaughter, reduced cooldown and increased bleed damage on the granted skill. I actually see Slaughter used a not small amount of time. That's pretty cool. Torment, reduced physical resist reduction to -8% and added matching vitality resist reduction on the skill proc. I don't remember. There's too many relics that have vitality resist reduction. I never remember which one is which. Zeal, reduced crit damage and cooldown on the skill proc and added OA to it. Kind of unfortunate that this got nerfed. I always liked Zeal. Kind of the way it was, as a brief burst of immense damage potential. But now it's kind of just being normalized to very frequent bursts of moderate damage increase. Components. There's some stuff to get hyped about. I'm going to take a swig of water first. Alrighty. Aether Soul. Increases defensive ability to 30. I believe Black Tallow, yeah. So the Aether Resistance and the Chaos Resistance Amulet Metal components both got 30 defensive ability. I believe they had 16? Or was it 14? It's one of those. But they have 30 now, which is pretty cool. I see these used occasionally, but it's always kind of a feels bad to put one on a build. Arcane Lens. Increased elemental damage to 5 to 10, which isn't divisible by 3, so that is annoying. Percent elemental damage to 25% and defense ability to 40. Holy crap. That's a lot of DA. Arcane Spark. Increased offensive ability to 50 from 44. Added 30% disruption resistance. This is pretty solid. Arcane Spark was already used. This is an immense buff. Attuned at Lodestone. Increased offensive ability to 32. Increased damage on the steel proc and added percent damage reduction to it. Interesting. I haven't seen this used in kind of a long time. The values on the base component itself are kind of lackluster. The damage values, that is. It's this, like, weird quasi-retaliation, but also regular lightning damage thing. This is pretty cool. It's a Lightning Nova proc, so getting the free damage reduction, depending on how much this is, if it's something shitty like 5 or 8%, then why bother? But if it's, 10 to 15%, that's pretty good. Oh. Okay. I'm thinking maybe like 12% would probably be balanced here. Binding's Abysmal. Increase percent all damage to 20%. Is that for... because this is a pet thing. Is that for pets or players? I don't know. I would assume players based on wording. Black Tallow. Blazing Ruby added 15% slow resist. Pretty good, but I never see this used. I guess you can put Blazing Ruby everywhere, right? So this could be an option. You can put it on gloves. Hold on. Where's my keyboard? Oh, that's a lot of tabs. Why am I here? Grim Tools DB. No. Calculator. You can put this on gloves. No, you can't. Okay. Where can you put Blazing Ruby? I thought it was all armor. Oh, I'm thinking of Enchanted Earth. Is this a ring thing? No. Do I just not understand how Grim Dawn works? Yes. Okay, so it's Amulets Metals. Now it has slow resist. Meh. That's kind of lackluster, actually. Chains of Odin replaced percent all damage with 6% run speed and increased OA to 30. Sure, more run speed for casters. Corpse Dust, and this was only 12% damage, so it's not a huge loss. Corpse Dust increased health to 4% from 3%, and percent vitality resist to 10% from 6%? Dread Skull. Increased base damage to 24%. I think it was 18 before. And replaced percent attack and run speeds with 5% total speed. Oh, I wish I knew this earlier. I actually was wanting cast speed on this thing, which now it gets via total speed. This is kind of nice. Probably because this is another amulet metal competing component, so probably won't see all that much use, but I do know a few use cases where this would be nice to have. Run and cast speed would be pretty nice. Ectoplasm, increased energy regeneration to 3.0. Always nice to see an ectoplasm buff. Killian Shattered Soul, increased damage on the steel proc. Yes! I'm pretty sure I'm the only person in the world that uses this. I'll take it. Mark of Illusions, increased energy regen to 2.5, which I think... Wasn't Ecto already at 2.5? Was it at 2? It was at 2 for a long time. I forget if it was ever buffed above that. I don't know. Mark of Dragon, increased run speed to 10%. That's a lot. And percent health to 5%. This is straight up the Mark of the Traveler run speed. But Mark of the Traveler now has slow resist. But Mark of the Traveler doesn't have percent health. I'm pretty sure this is now uniformly better than Traveler, and there's no questions whatsoever. Runebound Topaz added 10% stun resist. Okay. Topaz was kind of falling behind Bloodied Crystal. This is acceptable. Was Bloodied Crystal nerfed? No. Yeah. Alright, sure. Seal of Ancestry, increased damage absorption on the granted skill to what? Wasn't it already 10,000? Is it 15,000 now? Seal of Annihilation, reduced OA and DA reduction to minus 55 from minus 70. Not the biggest nerf out there, but Annihilation keeps eating nerfs, and it will probably eat another one, because there's no reason not to take this. I don't... So, I'm going to speak plainly. My opinion on Annihilation, and this might differ from, like, everyone in the world. My opinion on Annihilation, of why I take this on every single build I always ever make, is not because of the steel proc. The steel proc is pretty nice. It's nice to get, you know, free OA and DA reduction. But I take this for 20 spirit, energy 10% energy cost reduction, and then 5% attack or cast speed. Like, I'm not really taking it for this. Those 4 stats right there, 3 of which I will use on a given build, because I'm not doing an attack and cast speed scaling build. 3 of those 4 stats are why I'm taking this on all of my amulets, on all of my builds. And those stats haven't really ever been touched. So, you can nerf the granted steel all you want. I'm still using Annihilation over Ancestry. Seal of Blades, increased damage on the granted steel. Pierce Overbot coming through. I wonder if you could... I wonder if you could actually make a reasonable Pierce or a bot. In all seriousness. You could do... Oh no, but maybe you could get away with a Chaos or a bot, because there's the amulet that gives you a Fire Chaos thingamajig, and then there's a lot of sources of Pierce to Chaos. I bet you probably could get away with that. Seal of Blight. Increased damage and percent crit damage on the granted skill. Seal of Corruption. Increased damage on the granted skill. Seal of Destruction eats another nerf. Increased burn damage. They really don't want this to be, you know, a thing. Which is a shame, because it's fun. I guess they want it to be more fire and forget than it is. Which is a shame. I really liked the style of just using this as a main skill. Seal of Shadows, reduced percent weapon damage on the granted skill to 50%, that's still massive, and reduced acid and pierce damage. Sure. Seal of Skies, increased damage on the granted skill. Chain Lightning, coming through. I didn't actually see that first time. I find Seal of Skies Chain Lightning to be a little buggy, which is the main reason I haven't really made a build with it, and generally kinda don't like taking it, but maybe there's a chance if the damage is high enough, it could be worth it. Seal of Night, reduced percent weapon damage on the granted skill to 12%, and reduced cold damage, reasonable. Seal of the Void, increased damage on the weapon pool granted skill, but didn't increase the chance, which is unlike these. Vengeful Wraith, increased OA to 36. Yowza. Retaliation added to attack builds, coming through. Vicious Jawbone, increased attack speed to 5% from 3%. I don't really know why you would ever use this over this. Wardstone, increased run speed to 6% from 4%? And percent bleed and elemental resistances to 18% from I actually don't know at all. Monster infrequents. Many existing monster infrequents have had the stats increased at lower levels to make finding them more enticing during the leveling process. Yay! Increased chance that monster infrequents will drop with a rare effects. In addition, Nemesis monster infrequents will now always have at least one rare effect. Yay! I've actually noticed that. I think just in the span of a few hours of testing alone, I managed to get a small handful of double rare Nemesis monster infrequents, none of which were actually any good, but I've definitely been noticing more 2 rare effects monster infrequent MIs from Nemesis. So if you need good pants or shoulders, now's the time to get them. Or, I guess, Kaizen's Eye. Fixed issue where Rift Claw slices could not drop. Pretty cool. There's a free monster infrequent in this patch. Enjoy an old monster infrequent that's, quote, new, quote, since it didn't drop for over a year. Aether Warped Cleaver, here's where it gets fun. Increased percent health to 4%, and bonus to barrel shares to +3. There's that +3 on a weapon pool skill again. You'll see that a lot. Increased target bonus modifier for cadence to +2, and added 100% physical damage modifier to it. What this doesn't mention is that Aether Warped Cleaver got new art, because there's another variant that drops from the same boss that is using the old art. The new one, because physical damage has this kind of orange, fiery look to it on other itemization, that's the new art for Aether Warped Cleaver. I have a build definitely using one of these, and this is pretty freaking cool. Also not mentioned here, because I talked to Xantai about this, and I don't remember his response, but he kind of didn't want to mention it too. The targeting angle on cadence was actually a limiting factor for skill modifiers that granted more targets to cadence, because presently, I don't remember what the old numbers were. I think Fighting Form gives you 160 degrees of a target angle static for 2 to 4 targets, which is, you know, less than the full everything ahead of you, because everything ahead of you would be 180 degrees. Well, yes, ahead and sides of you. So it was a cone ahead of you beforehand, and then other items would give you small amounts of additional angles to that. But you couldn't actually get enough to fully make use of all of these bonus targets everywhere, which sucked. So I wrote a small dissertation on this, and got that changed, and any item that gives this stat has, and also had a targeting angle stat on it, has also had that targeting angle stat increased, but that's not in the changelog for reasons. I believe the highest you can get the targeting angle is 340 degrees, which is enough to more or less hit anything. Obviously, it's not 360 degrees, so there's a small area behind you where you can't hit an enemy with cadence, but if you stack the items up correctly and use fighting form, you can more or less hit anything around you with cadence, which is pretty cool. Arcamos' Scythe. Increased core damage modifier for Blitz to 140 and its chance of cooldown reduction modifier to 20%. I hate that stupid weapon. It's so bad. It used to be, like, really good before skill modifiers existed, and then they existed, and this is just garbage. Same thing with the War Sword. Increased chance of cooldown reduction modifier for Vire's Might to 20%. Whatever. Ascendant Authority, I have no clue what this is. Increased health to 4% and increased % chaos resist. Increased all speed modifier for Summon Guardian of... Oh, it's that thing. For Summon Guardian of Empyrean to 30%. I think it was 20% before, which means stacking 2 of these does give you a 20% total speed increase to Guardians of Empyrean, which is pretty dang cool. I think there's another item that gives attack speed to it, so you can probably get Guardians with 85-ish, maybe, attack speed, which is kind of neat. Ascendant Conduit, increased health to 4%, increased fire damage modifier for Vindictive Flame to 220, so you can get to blasting. Ascendant Cowl, increased summon burst? What? Oh, increased summon burst modifier for raised skeletons to 3. So, the number of skeletons you summon in a burst, quote unquote, is increased by 3 with this. I don't know what it was before, I assume 2. Ascendant Hood. Increased % elemental damage, increased duration modifier for devastation to 3 seconds. Sure. Ascendant Source. Sorry, my air conditioner's making a noise, but it's much too hot and muggy out for me to turn it off. Ascendant Source. Increased % health to 4%, that's a common trend. Increased % crit damage modifier for Sigil of Consumption to 25%. Yes, good. Trait is finally catching on that crit damage is the way to build Sigil of Consumption. Thank you. Ascendant Chest. No one believed me for 4 years on this, but now they're listening. Ascendant Cast. Increased % attack speed modifier for Maven's Sphere of Protection to 15%, and its armor modifier also to 15%. Sure. There's still no way you take that over the multitude of legendary helmets available to you. Aether... I don't know how to say this. Diadem? Diadem? I don't really know. Increased duration modifier from area of Ariocrates to 0.5 seconds from 0.3 seconds, and its % crit damage modifier to 35%. If I'm not mistaken, I want to say you can make mirror last 4.2 seconds now from 3.9-ish. Which is pretty cool. I don't know specifically the exact values because they're so small, I don't know them. But there's some wacky stuff, some neat breakpoints you can hit with mirror now. Fresh water. Ascended Epaulets. I don't know. Increased % elemental damage and offensive ability. Thanks for giving us the values. Same thing on Ascended Vestment. Got increased elemental damage without telling us how much. Bardol's Core. Added +2 second duration modifier for Call of the Grave. I don't play pets. Bardol's Heart. Increased % elemental damage by an unknown amount. Bardol's Root. How much does Bardol have? Increased bonus to Shadowing Smash to +3, there's that +3 again. Increased % weapon damage modifier for Shadowing Smash to 60%, and added 40% weapon damage modifier for Blitz. Sure. I don't know, actually the 40% to Blitz is kinda cool. Bartholomew's Warmaul, I hate Shadowing Smash though, so I'm never going to make use of that, but this is kinda neat. Bartholomew's Warmaul, increased percent damage modifier, modified modifier, for Fire Strike to 10%. Sure. I should try that build again. I made it a while ago, and it was okay. I don't know if another, what, 5% is going to make too much of a difference. But maybe. Basilisk Crest. Added support for Word of Renewal. The healing DA skill and Inquisitor. Sure. Basilisk Fang. Added support for Dreed's Evil Eye. Neat. Increase, I don't know if you would ever take that over... Dreed's Evil Eye needs better itemization, but definitely not in the weapon slot. Increased percent crit damage modifier for Aegis of Mania to 22% and added a 4% attack damage converted to health modifier for it. Interesting. Basilisk Mark. Added support for Blood of Dreed, sure. Increased acid damage modifier for Vein of Steel to 180. That's not out of the question to be used. Bloodlord's Blade. Increased percent chance of percent cooldown reduction modifier for possession to 8%. I wonder if you could get away with using 2 of these on a Doombolt build or something. You would have no energy regen whatsoever, but it'd be wacky. Bloodlord's Vengeance, added +2 to Aura of Censure, and that's it. Fun fact, I made a Bloodlord's Vengeance build in testing, but not for this reason. If you use 2 of these and the Virtue Helmet, you can make Ascension last 20 seconds on a 24-second cooldown. And all you need is either a small amount of percent cooldown reduction or time dilation and devotion, and you have 100% Ascension uptime, which is amazing. The build's a little on the squishy side, though, which is my only complaint with it, but it's pretty cool. It's a fun build to play, if it doesn't instantly die. Hello, Loris. Bloodsworn Codex. Increased percent damage modifier for summoned Biothorn to 35%. Oh god, that's how you know Biothorn needs help. An added -8 second cooldown modifier for it. Oh no. Oh gosh. Help that poor boy. Bloodsworn Repeater. Increased chaos damage modifier for Doombolt to 100 to 210 because Doombolt doesn't already do infinite damage. Bloodsworn Scepter. Added 45% of vitality doubt as chaos. I always forget which it is. Whether I need more chaos to vitality conversion or more vitality to chaos conversion. One of those barely exists in the game. The other one is all over the place. I don't know which one this is. Increased chaos damage modifier for sigil consumption to 34 to 160. Neat. And removed Witchfire modifier. Oh, I was actually about to make use of that. Oh well. Bloodsworn Sigil. Added support for Flames of Idnifar. I've gotten a pin. Oh boy, a heart. Added support for Flames of Idnifar. Increased bonus to Doombolt to +3, and increased fire damage modifier for Doombolt to 250. Oh my god. That's a lot of damage. Bloodsworn Signet. Man, just kill Bloodsworn, pretty much, right? Like, Bloodsworn Signet increased physical resist for pets to 5%. Cool. Bloodsworn Vestments increased percent health to 4%. Cool. Boneblade. Increased vitality damage modifier for bloody parts to 90. Sure. Boneblade Halberd, which I've never seen used. Increased percent... Nope. Go again. Increased pierce damage and percent pierce damage. Oh, I could have been right the first time. Increased cooldown reduction modifier for Shadow Strike to -0.6 seconds. Maybe usable. Too bad it's a two-handed weapon. Bone Scythe. Added -4 second cooldown reduction modifier. What? And 100% energy cost reduction modifier for Wendigo Totem, and added 100% of cold doubt as vitality modifier for Bone Harvest. What? That's insane. Hello? Just free Wendigo Totem whenever you need it. Okay. Sure. Bone Slide. What? Increase bleed damage modifier for Judgment to 320 over 2 seconds. I didn't even know there was a bleed damage modifier for Judgment. That sounds dumb as all hell. Bone Spike. Added 65 vitality damage and 3-second duration modifiers for Devouring Swarm. If that's the same value at all levels, that's probably garbage for endgame. But potentially very, very strong for leveling with Devouring Swarm, and Devouring Swarm leveling has always kind of petered off once you hit Elite, so now I bet you could get through into Ultimate by using this. Neat. Absolute trash for endgame. Bound Wraith. Increased cooldown reduction modifier for Conjure Primal Spirit to -6 seconds. Imagine living in 2020, and Conjure Primal Spirit is still a temporary summon. Chosen, whatever the hell you pronounce this. Increased % pierce damage and offensive ability. Sure. Chosen Gaze. Increased % armor to 5% and increased % crit damage modifier for Ascension to 15%. Neat. Sadly, you can't get away with taking this on the 100% uptime Ascension build. So, why bother, am I right? Chosen Raiment. Added % acid damage. Sure. Chosen Spalders. Increased % elemental damage and offensive ability to unknown values. Chosen Visage. Added 15% crit damage modifier for Grenado. Explodey Boy. Oh. I ruined the joke by stuttering, I'm sorry. Coerced Wraith. Increased % crit damage modifier for Devastation to 24%. And increased its target radius modifier to -2. Does that mean it's more negative or less negative than it was before? Because depending on which way that's going, that could be a nerf or a buff. But 24% crit damage on Devastation. Woo! Colossal Bulwark. Added 10% damage modifier for Overguard. Slowly going back to the Overguard shield meta that everyone hated. Colossal Defender. Increased burn damage modifier for Aegis of Menhir to 220 over 3 seconds. Not divisible by 3. Screw you. And added 5% retaliation damage added to attack modifier for it. For what? Aegis? Eh, sure. That's probably pretty okay, actually. Colossal Fortress. Increased bonus to Vindictive Flame to +3. Reduced cooldown reduction modifier for Counter-Strike to point. No! Ah! No! Don't fucking... Don't do that. No. Why? No. Go back. Roll it back. Build ruined. You're actually gonna make me put my hands on my keyboard again. How dare you? Go. Undo. Control Z. I've been added on Discord. What's happening? Alright, I'm back. But I'm not as bad as this should be. Oh ho! Compelled Wraith. Increased % increased burn and vitality decay durations to 50%. Okay. Increased % fire resist reduction modifier for Siphon Souls to -20%. No one likes having RR on this dumb fucking skill, okay? Get this out of here. Put it somewhere people actually want it. Creeping Ring. Increased acid retaliation added +3 to Aspect of the Guardian. Sure. And people said retaliation would be nerfed this patch. Crimson's Arcane Scepter increased % health to 4%. Sure. Crimson's Vile Scepter increased health to 4%. Increased poison damage modifier for Dreed ZY to 120 over 3 seconds. Is divisible by 3, therefore it is acceptable. Thank you. Death Watcher Pendant added +1 to Necromancer what? Oh, I can't read. Necromancer skills. And removed bonus to Call of the Grave. Ho ho, it blasted. Increased health to 4%. Added 15% heal modifier for Call of the Grave. Oh, and added 10% health modifier for Madrogen's Pact. Oh my god. 40,000 health warders coming to a game near you. Oh my god. What is this? On an amulet. What? Dermapteran Slicer. Increased % pierce damage. Increased % weapon damage modifier for Armor Master's Quick Cut to 18%. I think Xantai teased that earlier. Added 6% 80 CTH and 50 pierce damage modifiers for Whirling Death. That's actually pretty good. I don't know about Armor Master's Quick Cut. That's kind of whatever. But free heals and more damage on Whirling Death is pretty solid. Dreed set lead gods, sure. Increased health regen and acid retaliation. Not why I take those pants. Elena's necklace added +1 to Nightblade skills, and I do take those pants, but not for those stats. Elena's necklace added +1 to Nightblade skills and removed bonus to Veil of Shadow. Added Frostburn damage bonus for Star Pet and added cold damage bonus. So hold up. Death Watcher Pendant, which drops from like 40 trillion enemies, gets this amazing shit, and Elena's necklace, which drops from one enemy, gets like nothing. Cool. Flesh Warped Archive. Increased % all damage for pets and added 8% physical resist for pets. Removed % life reduction resist for pets. Get out of here with pets. Increased pet % damage modifier for summon hellhound to 40%. Ah! Does that apply to the, It has to apply to the on-death effect of the hellhound, right? That's insane for leveling. How soon can you... Yeah, I guess you have to be in Melmoth, so it's kind of late, I guess. That'd be pretty funny. Your hellhound explodes and so does your fucking computer screen. Increased on Flesh Warped Bulwark. Increased % current life resist to 50%. Okay, hard reading. From Madrogen's Pact and added 50% slow resist and 50% flesh resist modifiers for... Oh my god. Stack up all of the Madrogen's Pact modifiers and just ignore game mechanics, I guess. Flesh Warped Carbine. Added 3-second duration modifier for Arcane Will. That's pretty interesting, actually. That would let you do some interesting things with Arcane Will's uptime. Granted, Arcane Will, in my opinion, still isn't that great, but it's certainly much better for this. Not that you necessarily want to sacrifice your entire weapon slot to make it good, but that's not the worst thing I've ever seen. Increased % weapon damage modifier for Warcry to 50% on Flesh Warped Cask. And added 6% offensive ability modifier for Escandra's Elemental Exchange. Yeah, I mean, if you just, slam massive weapon damage values onto Battle Mage, sure, it'll be good. Right? Like, why not? Flesh Warped Codex, increased % elemental damage, increased Aether damage modifier for Calidus Tempest to 45, and duration modifier for Blast Shield to 1.5 seconds. Pretty good, actually. I don't really care about this, but this is pretty solid on Blast Shield. Flesh Warped Core, increased energy cost reduction modifier for Calidus Tempest to 20%, increased its crit damage modifier to 40%. That's pretty solid. Add minus 3 second cooldown reduction modifier for Menu as well. That's, all in all, pretty decent. I don't think you're gonna ever see a Battle Mage with this weapon on a Calidus Tempest build. But on any other Calidor's Tempest build that isn't taking Soldier, that's pretty good. Flesh Warped Defender. Increased bonus to Smite +3. Increased percent damage reduction modifier for Judgment to 18% over 5 seconds. Pretty standard, which makes it good. Flesh Warped Incinerator. Increased burn damage modifier for Canister Bomb to, 180 over 2 seconds. I don't think this competes with what is the entirety of the Olzuin set. So, no. Sorry, goodbye. Flesh Warped Plate Mail. Increased Pierce Resist. Whatever. Flesh Warped Shard, increased elemental damage. Increased elemental damage modifier for Necrotic Edge to 240. Increased its all resist reduction modifier to 30 over 5 seconds, so just don't take Devotion. Added 10-second duration and minus 10% elemental resist modifiers for Word of Pain. Oh my goodness gracious. So, what you're telling me is Elemental Apostate just saves, like, 25 devotion points by taking this one item. Okay, sure. What is that? Ganatros Dread Plating. Increased percent elemental damage. Sure. Ganarvakas whatever's Stain. Increased acid damage modifier for Righteous Fervor to a whopping 16. And its percent crit damage modifier to 12%. Sure. Garbage Balls Ring, increased OA to some unknown amount and added +3 to Righteous Fervor. Gargoyle Spines, increased OA. Oh my goodness, a new follow? Who could have done this? Thank you for the follow, the X, LOL. Thank you. Gargoyle Visage, increased percent resist reduction modifiers for bloody parts. It doesn't even tell us what resists. To minus 12%. Hello, Hans. Global Death Effigy added minus 0.3 cooldown reduction modifier for Phantasmal Blades for those of maybe the 2 people in the universe that aren't spamming the skill. Global Ember Effigy increased fire damage modifier for Thermite Mine to 80. No. Global Sand Effigy increased bleed damage, added percent bleed damage. Added 70 bleed damage over 1 second modifier for Grasping Vines. That's probably not bad. Global Stone Effigy, increased percent elemental damage. Global Toxic Effigy, increased percent weapon damage modifier for Dreed's Evil Eye to 45. Hold on. So, you can walk away with Dreed's Evil Eye doing 150% weapon damage while spamming it? Not even taking the transmuter? What? Excuse me? 150% weapon damage caster build spamming skills. Hello? Global Vile Effigy. Increased poison damage modifier for bloody parts to 140 over 1 second. That's actually pretty solid, actually. That's not bad. Goldrazor's Heart, increased acid and poison percent damage. Increased bonuses to fight Righteous Fervor and Horn of Gandar to +3. Increased acid damage modifier for Horn of Gandar to 240, and reduced percent weapon damage modifier for Righteous Fervor to 10%. My chaos are limitless. Haunted Shoulder Pad, limitless, no. I put that word in my head, now I had to say it again. Increased percent elemental damage and offensive ability. It's going to be a long stream, but it doesn't tell us by how much. Itrix Scale added lightning retaliation. Oh, nice. And support for resilience. Very cool. Added percent lightning retaliation damage modifier for Overguard. Huh. Itrix was already, like, usable. Now it's probably pretty, decent, I would imagine. Ildor's Eternal Curse. Added support for chilling rounds. Oh, that's a dangerous place to be. Increased percent weapon damage modifier for Armor Master's Blade Burst to 40%. Yowza. Isn't that a medal? Giving ABB 40% weapon damage on a metal? Hello? If this is an amulet, that's fine. I think it's a metal, though. Ildor's Eternal Vigil added support for Pneumatic Burst, doesn't tell us how. Incendiary Cast added 15% crit damage modifier for Fire Strike. Increased percent crit damage modifier for Flames of Ignifar to 24%, and its energy cost reduction modifier to 8%. So, Flames of Ignifar gets amazing bonuses. Fire Strike gets this lackluster stuff. You're not sacrificing your helmet slot for this on Fire Strike, and you're not taking Fire Strike and Flames of Ignifar, so why is this here? Kilvian's Skullbreaker, increased percent weapon damage modifier for Fire Strike to 25%. On the other hand, you may well take this, because this is pretty dang solid, and Kilvian's is a decent weapon. Korvax Burning Blade, increased physical doubt as fire for pets to 100%. I don't play pets. Cloven Cast added minus 10% vitality resist reduction and 3% duration modifiers for Devouring Swarm. So, hold on. There's no way I find it again. Oh no, right here. So Bone Spike gets, more vitality damage, yay! And 3% duration modifier for Devouring Swarm. This thing, where is it? Gets actual resist reduction, which scales forever, and 3% or 3-second duration modifier for Devouring Swarm. Why would you ever take the first one, other than for leveling? And I think you still take this while leveling, and you can get this even sooner while leveling. Cloven Celestial Halberd, increased percent crit damage modifier for Blade Art to 40%, because Blade Art needed more crit damage. Absolutely. Portenosis, can you take I thought this was a... Oh no, it's Bone Blade, you can take both of them, okay. I guess you could dual wield Bone Blades too. I thought it was another helmet. Where am I? Celestial... yeah. Cloven Eldritch Halberd. Increased acid damage modifier for Righteous Fervor to 44, and its crit damage modifier to 12%. Cloven Gaze. Increased percent attack speed modifier for Righteous Fervor to 15%. Sure. I talked earlier about how I liked Mistborn Talisman getting 10% attack speed to its granted skill. In general, I kind of don't like attack speed on default weapon attack replacers such as these, because, not for any, practical reason, it just makes planning a build somewhat more difficult and more unintuitive. And the build also just looks worse while you're not actively using it. So, perfectly fine stat to have. And very good stat to have, but, from a third-person perspective, it's a very confusing stat to try to calculate around. Cloven Helm. Increased percent weapon damage modifier for Reaping Strike to 60%, and added 50 Vitality Decay over 5 seconds and 150% Vitality Decay damage, with 50% increased duration modifiers for Soleil's Witchfire. What a mouthful. Have a semicolon, for God's sake. That's a lot of weapon damage. I'm putting that one out there. Yes, this is the Monster Infrequent patch. I think it was labeled as such. The Monster Infrequent update is upon us. So yes, this is the patch. Cloven Reaping Howard, this is my boy. Increased percent weapon damage modifier for Bone Harvest to 60%. My boy! Nice! I don't remember what it was. If that's more than a 10% change, that's amazing. Cloven Storm Halberd. Increased cooldown reduction modifier for Primal Strike to minus 0.8 seconds. You can do it. You can make 1 second. You can get there. Craval Shoulder Guards, 4% health. Craval Shoulder Pads, 4% health. And 4% OA for pets. Kaiman's Badge, added support for Calidor's Tempest. Added 15% crit damage modifier for Tornado. I would be very curious what this is. Kaiman's Sanctified Blade. increased percent elemental damage. Latest act is Bloodbinding. Added support for Siphon Souls, increased vitality damage modifier for Devouring Swarm to 50. Chat is telling me this was 40%, which makes this as amazing as I wanted it to be, and I will have to replay this character some more. It was already god tier. I am so excited to go back to that character. Latest act is Void Binding. Added support for Aegis of Menhir. I'm being invited to play Dota. Get out of here. Increased chaos damage modifier for Thermite Mine to 100. No. I hate flat damage modifiers on Thermite Mine. Until Thermite Mines stack their auras for damage, get this out of my face. Leaf Mane Horn. Increased acid damage modifier for Ravenous Earth to 80. Yeah. yeah, you know, that's definitely usable. Leaf Mane Trophy, increased vitality damage modifier for Inquisitor's Seal to 110. Yeah. Living Ring, increased elemental damage. Logorian's Corruption, increased OA and DA to 4%. So if you get a Logorian's Corruption of Readiness, you are just set. That's the game. Locksmere's Frostblade, reduced bonus to Nightfall to +2, increased percent crit damage modifier for Shadow Strike to 10%. Probably because Nightfall has weapon damage on it, so probably a very slight nerf. Malkadar's Dreadblade, increased bonus to Necrotic Edge to +3. You'll be seeing that a lot. Increased percent weapon damage modifier for execution to 60%. Oh my. And added 140 cold damage and 100% of vitality down as cold damage for Necrotic Edge. Oh my great goodness gracious. This is insane. This is insane. My goodness. That's a lot of damage. Use 2 of these and blast. Messenger's Blaze Cannon. Increased percent weapon damage modifier for Fire's Might to 80% and fire modifier for Warcry to 320. Yay! You can shout and set people on fire for 320 almost blaze it damage. Messengers, it's still probably terrible. Messenger's Repeater. Increased percent pierce damage, increased pierce ratio to 100%. Nice. A damage adjusted accordingly. Cool. Always happy to see this. Milton's Cast. Increased cooldown reduction modifier for Blitz to -0.4 seconds and added 100 physical damage modifier for it. Interesting. If that also lasts at low levels, I might be leveling with Blitz from now on. Murderer's Cowl, increased bleed modifier for Vein of Steel to 250 over 3 seconds. Not divisible by 3. Get this out of my face. Murderer's Epaulets, increased percent pierce damage and OA by unknown values. Mutant Bludgeon, increased percent crit damage to 8%. Increased cooldown reduction modifier for Force Wave to -0.5 seconds. Okay. Obsidian Bulwark. Increased bonus to Shadowing Smash to +3. Added 20% crit damage modifier for Blast Shield. That's pretty... that's neat, but probably mediocre. Increased percent crit damage modifier for Rune of Callisto to 33%, and its all resist reduction modifier to 24 over 3 seconds. Oh my goodness. What is it with these, like, off Inquisitor items getting insane all resist reduction to free up infinite devotion points? This is a trend I'm seeing. Obsidian Defender. Increased bonus to Soleil's Witchfire to +3. Interesting. Increased chaos damage modifier for Shadowing Smash to 102 to 320. That's a damage range. And added 5 to 32 chaos damage and 120% chaos damage modifiers for Soleil's Witchfire. Oh my goodness. The only problem with all of this is imagine building chaos damage in Oathkeeper. I don't think so, dude. Obsidian War Cleaver increased percent weapon damage modifier for Force Wave to 60% and added a minus 0.5 second cooldown modifier for it. Timeout. This was, in my opinion, one of the strongest ways to level with Force Wave. You take a two-handed weapon, you don't transmute it, you have 300% weapon damage all throughout the game, and then you reach the end of the game, get one of these things, and have even more bonkers damage. And now it's even more insane. So basically, level with Force Wave after leveling with Blitz. Soldier is the new leveling master. Overseer Eye. Reduced bonuses to Stun Jacks and Lightning Tether to +2 because trait hates fun. Increased electrocute damage modifier for Stun Jacks to 80 over 3 seconds, which also isn't divisible by 3, so get this out of my face. Potler's Skins. Increased health regeneration and percent health regeneration. Increased vitality damage modifier for Wendigo Totem to 120. I'm so popular, guys, look at me. Potler's Visage. Increased health and percent health regeneration added... Oh, my thoughts on this. Whack. Added 12% vitality resist reduction modifier for Siphon Souls. I still don't like resist reduction on Siphon Souls. But there's like 2 places you can put it in Necromancer, and it's here or Ill Omens? Is that his name? So you pick one, and I guess they went with Siphon Souls for this. But I hate putting resist reduction on Siphon Souls. Or casting Siphon Souls to do more damage, rather. I like this skill as a defensive utility skill, not as a... Oh, now I insta-kill something skill. Pitmaster's Axe. Increased percent weapon damage modifier for Blade Art to 40%. Sure. Pulsing Shard. Increased percent crit damage modifier for Reap Spirit to 50%. Reap Spirit did not need the help. Putrid Necklace. Added +1 to Occultist skills and removed bonus to Blood of Dreed. Oh, +1 to Occultist skills. My goodness. Okay, sure. Now we're on to something. Increased percent grit damage modifier for Blood of Dreed to 12%, and increased its Aether Delta's acid modifier to 100%. Added percent offensive ability modifier for Estrandra's Elemental Exchange. So... Acid... Warlock? Acid Devastation coming through. It goes from looking green to looking green. Rift Scourge Slicer. Increased acid damage modifier for Shadow Strike to 180. Okay. Sure. That's pretty good. Volderoth's Tome. Reduced bonus to Chosen Skyshard to +2. Okay. Increased cooldown reduction modifier for Chosen Skyshard to minus 0.5 seconds. I don't know if that's enough to compete with the legendary Chosen's weapons, because those tend to be pretty freaking strong. Varlock Crest added support for Savagery. Varlock Mark added support for Primal Strike. Increased vitality damage modifier for Sigil to 100. Sure. I'll take some of that. That looks juicy. Sandclaw Slicer, replace bonus to Smite with +2 to Rebuke. I'm not actually happy with that. Only because I don't like Aegis of Menhir all that much. That is the... Hold on. I don't know my Oathkeeper skills all that well. That's this skill. No, that's Reprisal. Rebuke is... Oh, this. What was a Smite with +2 to Rebuke? It's probably good, but I like Smite. Stirrup Carapace. Increased elemental damage modifier for Aura of Censure and its attack speed reduction modifier to 20%. Eh. I guess more Oradins coming through. Scarab Shell. Increased bleed damage modifier for Blade Spirit to 220 over 2 seconds. Is divisible by 2, so this is allowed. And its crit damage modifier to 20%. Sure. Why not? I'll take some bleed Blade Spirits, thank you. Scorpius Bludgeon. Increased bleed damage modifier for Blade Arc to 80 over 3 seconds. Not divisible by 3, so get out of here. Also, that's not all that much damage. That just doesn't seem great. Scorpius Pummeler. Increased percent OA for pets to 4%. Increased percent crit damage modifiers for Summon Biothorn and Summon Bite Fiend to 50%. The pet numbers, I have no idea how to interpret that, but we're seeing shit like Biothorn damage multiplied by 800. Crit damage by 50%, and I have no idea how to interpret that, but it looks insane. Sigarius's Sacred Blade increased health to 4%. Sigarius's Tainted Blade increased health to 4%. Increased Chaos damage modifier for Flames of Rinderfar to 88. Yeah. I guess Chaos FOI isn't the worst thing ever created, and it's at least viable, but I suppose it's usable. I don't know if I would use it, but it's usable. There's just so many Chaos weapons that have Chaos resist reduction on them, which is sorely needed on a Chaos build. But on the other hand, 88 damage on a laser archetype skill is pretty solid, so you can make an argument for it. Servitor's Cleaver increased burn damage modifier for Righteous Fervor to 120 over 3 seconds, is divisible by 3, so it passes. I still don't really like the idea of a burn auto-attacker. But I suppose you have to do it here, because otherwise you're just making Fire Strike, but not Fire Strike. Servitor's Corruptor increased Chaos damage modifier for Cadence to 110. Don't really care about that. As someone who has made Chaos Cadence, this isn't too appealing. Servitor's Slicer. Increased cooldown for kind of the same reason as this. There's no reason you would ever take this on a Chaos Cadence build instead of Thane of Chthon and any of the other Chaos weapons whose names are not coming to my mind at present. Or the Warborn Gavel, which is a physical weapon, but just buffs the hell out of Cadence, so with the rest of it set. So this has like much itemization to overcome to be usable. And I don't think this matters. Servitor's Slicer. Increased cooldown reduction modifier for Vein of Steel to 0.6 seconds. Cool. Slath Saw's Crest. Added support for Blackwater Cocktail. Sure. Spectral Obelisk. Increased vitality damage modifier for Phantasmal Blades to 60. Probably not taking that. Ever. Like, you're not taking that on Demon Slayers, because Demon Slayers already has a pistol. And you're not taking that when there's offhands, because you can't use an offhand and a two-handed weapon. So no. Spectral Battle Axe, 4% health. Increased percent weapon damage modifier for Necrotic Edge to 60% and added 40% weapon damage modifier for Whirling Death. I think there's a good chance you combine this with the thing that added attack damage converted to health to Whirling Death. And then Whirling Death parts, and you heal to full no matter what you're up against. Question, they didn't put the new MIs anywhere, right? We just need to discover them. Correct, they drop from primarily base game bosses, but there are also 5 between Ashes of Malmouth and Forgotten Gods. I think that still drop from base game bosses, but their modifiers are for Inquisitor, Necromancer, or Oathkeeper. But yes, they are not listed here in the patch notes. You have to find them in-game. As for those that stand out to me, I would recommend checking out Lucius under Fort Icon. He is a pretty cool one. Spectral Crown. Increased % physical resist for pets to 6%. Added 8% physical resist modifier for Bonds of Bismiel. I guess this actually applies to the player, which could be interesting. Especially since Occultist already walks away with free physical resist on Blood of Dread / Arm of the Guardian. Spectral Longsword, increased % pierce damage and % health to 4%. Spectral War Shield, fixed Vitality Retaliation being lower than intended in Forgotten Gods exclusively. Neat. Spectral War Maul, increased duration modifier for Siphon Souls to 5 seconds. Sure. And increased its Vitality resist reduction modifier to 12%. Added 90 Vitality damage modifier for Wendigo Totem. So I'm okay with this because of this. Because that means you can have the resist reduction uptime and still kind of save on using Siphon Souls for when you need to, as a emergency utility defensive option. So I'm alright with this one getting away. Steward's Halberd. Increased % weapon damage modifier for Value's Might to 33%. They're really stingy on this weapon. Increased its internal trauma damage modifier to 220 over 2 seconds. There was another one that gave Value's Might increased weapon damage to Value's Might and got 40%. Why is this at 33? Turnarx's Aether Tome. Alright, we're almost through with monster infrequents. Turnarx's Aether Tome increased cooldown reduction modifier for Devastation to 4 seconds, and added 20% energy cost reduction modifier for it. I'm pretty sure Turnarx already sees use for Devastation, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is a significant bump up to pre-existing characters. I do recall there was a good deal of debate about how Devastation is performing not terribly well at present, so it wouldn't surprise me if this is just a generic buff to Devastation characters. Turnarx's Arcane Tome, increased % elemental damage, sure. Troll Bone Crusher, increased % crit damage modifier for Savagery to 18%. Sure. Odinbard Arcane Weaver, increased % elemental damage, increased elemental damage modifier for Fire Strike to 32. No, thank you. God, this is like one of the most unappealing stats I've seen on a two-handed skill modifier. Odinbard Bio Launcher, increased % health to 6%, increased % weapon damage modifier for Armaster's Blade Burst to 40%. So you could take a one-handed weapon and get 40% weapon damage to Armaster's Blade Burst, or you could take a two-handed weapon and get exactly that same amount. Odinbard Bolt Thrower, increased % pierce damage, increased pierce damage modifier for Cadence to 130, and its crit damage modifier to 20%. Okay. Alright. That's not out of the question, honestly, for a Pierce Cadence ranged build. Odinbard Flame Strife. Increased fire damage modifier for Flames of Rindafar to 80. That's pretty good. Especially when the Chaos version only has 8 more points above it. Like, 80 fire is pretty dang good. Odin Flamethrower. Increased physical and fire resist reduction modifiers for Summon Guardian of Empyrean to minus 16%. Oh my goodness. That's a lot of free resist reduction, but it's a two-handed ranged weapon, so maybe it's not free. Increased Vitality, resist reduction for Devouring Swarm to 12% on the Odin Howler. Is that a one-handed pistol? I'm pretty sure the Howler is a one-handed pistol, which would make this very solid. If it's two-handed, not so much. Being told it is a one-handed pistol, so that's pretty good. That's solid, but you don't get the bone blade option, so unfortunate. You do get the Cloven helm option though. Odin Repeater, increased percent weapon damage modifier for Aegis of Menhir to 35%. I made a build with this. I don't remember what it was though. It's not coming to me. Odin Spark Thrower, added 4-second cooldown, or yeah, 4-second cooldown reduction modifier. Please, 0.4-second cooldown reduction modifier for Primal Strike. Sure. Actually, Spark Thrower I think was already pretty decent. So that is not unwelcome. Odin Venom Launcher. I'm going to turn off my AC because it's actually cooling down. Okay. Odin Venom Launcher added 60 health regeneration modifier. Oh my god. For Blood of Dread, and an increased percent damage modifier for deadly aim to 12%. That's a assload of health regeneration, and that's also an assload of percent damage modification. I still don't really want to use this. Actually, this... This could maybe see interesting use on a support character, because this would apply to your allies. So you can give your allies, like, mega health regeneration capabilities. I don't really know when you would want to use an acid, poison, pistolero inquisitor, though. But I guess the option is there. Vampiric Bone Wall, added energy regeneration. I guess, having 12%/24% total damage modification makes up for Inquisitor not giving you any acid resist reduction. Maybe. That's probably the theory, at least. Vampiric Bone Wall. Added energy regeneration, increased duration modifier for sigil consumption to 5 seconds. Oh yeah, that's nice. Yeah. Sigil actually, more recently when I've been making builds for it, I've been having a lot of energy issues, so this is not unwelcome. And having more uptime on each sigil is definitely very strong, because that lets you stack more of them on the same location for single target, which means you're also getting much more healing. Pretty good. Vildazor's Heart. Increased percent fire, burn damage, and percent health. Added +1 to demolitionist skills and removed bonus to Grenado. Okay. Increased fire damage modifiers for Rain of Steel and Grenado to 300 each. That's a lot of fire damage on Rain of Steel. That is a lot of fire damage on Rain of Steel. Oh my goodness. Again, no resist reduction for fire and Nightblade, so that's the trade-off, but that's a lot of damage. Vyloth's Reign, more offensive ability, neat. Always was the OA choice if you needed it. Vine Ring, added +3 to Aegis of Menhir. Viper Hemorrhager, Increased bleed damage modifier for phantasmal blades to 110 over 3 seconds. Not divisible by 3, so throw this out. Viper Sand Spitter. Increased crit damage modifier for Righteous Fervor to 12%. Actually, no, that's probably decent. Yeah, that's probably decent. Warden's Fortress. Increased Aether Resistance. Added 100 physical damage modifier for Blitz and increased its cooldown reduction modifier to 0.6 seconds. Man, I'm telling you, Milton's Heart, and then you go Warden's Fortress, Milton's Helmet, and you just walk around in Act 2 with your Blitz doing infinite damage with no cooldown. It's the leveling strat, I'm telling you. Warden's Judgment. Increased health to 4%. Increased percent physical resist for pets to 8%. Added 22 Aether damage modifier for Estrandra's Elemental Exchange. Interesting. I guess it's on Estrandra's and not Reckless Power so that you can use it earlier. Because you may not necessarily even be at Reckless Power on an Arcanist by the time you kill Warden. So that's pretty neat. Wendigo Claw. Increased bleed damage modifier for Devouring Swarm to 90 over 1 second. Oh, that's true. Also, this would apply to pets. Aether pets coming through. Or Aether, or damage type pets that convert from Aether. Wendigo Claw. Increased bleed damage modifier for Devouring Swarm to 90 over 1 second. What is 22 Aether damage going to do for you? On you, probably not a whole lot. I mean, it's noticeable. It'll probably multiply out to, what, another 400 to 600 damage? Which doesn't look like much when you're, doing 40,000 to 120,000 damage. So, yeah, it's not all that much for you, but this is actually very probably meant for pets. And pets scale very, very well with flat damage sources. Much better than they do for players because there's more of them. So all of your pets getting 22 Aether damage means they're all doing... I don't actually know pet stats that well. My guess would be somewhere around 800 more damage each. And you can have, 20 pets, so that multiplies out to 16,000 more damage each. That's not the worst. Wendigo Claw. Increased bleed damage modifier. I feel like I've read this 3 times and never talked about it. So I'm still not going to talk about it, for the memes. Wendigo Eye. Added support for Panetti's Replicating Missile. Increased percent elemental and percent pierce damage. Because, we really need that pierce Panetti's Replicating Missile. Increased elemental damage modifier for Word of Pain to 90. Sure. Wendigo Gaze. Added support for phase skeletons. Increased percent attack speed modifier for Summon Briarthorn to 25%. I'm real curious to make a Briarthorn build because I'm seeing a lot of modifiers for it that just have obscenely high values. Wendigo Lair. Increased percent pierce damage and added support for Blitz. My boy. Increased physical damage modifier for Shattering Smash to 180. I don't care because I hate that weapon pool still. Yeti Horn. Reduce bonus to Stormbarks of Outerloth and Wind Arrow to +2. That's a nerf to someone, I don't know who. Zarthuzalin's Archive. Increased physical damage. Increased burn damage modifier for Vire's Might to 250 over 2 seconds. Sure. Zarthuzalin's Codex. Added 20 fire damage modifier for Blackwater Cocktail. That's huge. Hello. This is making me want to play Blackwater Cocktail again. That's big. Because unlike this will stack with itself. Which means when you throw 6 of these on top of one another, you got 120 free base damage increase, which multiplies out to, 20,000... No. Take a digit off. 2,000 to 3,000 more damage increase. Non-negligible. that's pretty decent. Epic items. I'm not going to actually read through all of these. The big thing that you'll see a lot, such as, like, here, is what I talked about earlier, with weapon pool skills bonuses getting +3 on items in most cases. Another thing you'll see a lot of is increased energy regeneration, such as right here. There's just a lot of general changes that apply to epic items, and monster treatments, and legendary items. I don't want to read through all of these, because I value the existence of my throat. New epic items, and speaking of my throat, drink of water. Actually, I'll check if there's any interesting conversions in here, real quick. Not that I'm seeing. Although, I'm seeing a few examples of the loss of this, which is technically making the item more directed toward physical damage. So that's neat. New epic items. The following classic epic items have received mythical versions in the Forgotten Gods loot pool. Avarice of Adrian and Andronius? That. This doesn't give +1 all skills anymore. It used to, but it doesn't anymore. It does give you a lot of resistances, though. Bane of Nuam Sin, which has a granted skill that does insane cold damage. Bartholom's Verdict, which I don't really care about. Beast Slayer's Mark, which has, as one might expect, good racial damage on it. Berserker's Cowl. I didn't even know if there was an empowered Berserker's Cowl. Blood Seal. I knew there was an empowered version of it, but I didn't think it was very good, and I don't imagine the mythical version would be very good. The base version is fine, because it gives you decent regen at low levels, but higher level, that is less relevant. Burning Hatred, Curse of Burwitch. Curse of Burwitch is okay. Deathlord's Tome. I don't think that's all that great. Devil's Grin is a little interesting. I just changed my mouse sensitivity. Okay. Devil's Grin Shield is neat. Essence of Baronath finally gets a mythical version after 6 years of asking for it. Farmstead Liberator gets a mythical version, and is actually decent for Blade Arc. Flamebreaker gets a mythical version, same sort of idea with Blood Seal. The low level is fine for the regen, higher levels not so much. Gladiator is probably my favorite looking shield in the game, but it's not great. Gunslinger's Jacket finally gives you an opportunity to use a mythical version at high levels and have mythical level armor while dual wielding pistols. So, in and of itself, in a vacuum, not great, but what this enables is actually pretty decent. Inscribed Bracers is whatever. Mythical Lapis Lupus is amazing. Best item in existence. I love it. I'm so happy they added it, and I claim full responsibility for the fact that it got added. You're welcome. Lifebinder, sort of the same regen situation. Maleficus is interesting. Not too great. Oathbreaker's Flame Set is kind of a meme. Obsidian Grasp, getting a mythical version of this is actually pretty nice, and I do use it on my 100% uptime Ascension build. This is a very, very good fire item. If you're just doing straight, flat fire damage, weapon damage, sort of a build, this is a great item. For auto attackers, at least. For casters, not so much. Odin's Stabilizer, actually has decent defensive ability on it. Otherwise, whatever. Shadow's Grasp is a okay Pierce selection, but not great. Slithbane is actually very good. The mythical version is very, very good. I think it's the call if you want to do Acid Cadence. Like, it's just the weapon to do Acid Cadence with. Slugger is kind of a meme. Soul Thief is great, and I actually haven't theorized a build with it yet, but I've been meaning to. I would really like to build around Mythical Soul Thief, and I think it's definitely viable. Stonerot Groundbreakers don't strike me as very good, but they give you a lot of physique, which work with that however you will. Stormcaller's Circlet, I don't think is very good. Vanguard of the Legion has pretty decent resists on it, namely Aether Chaos, and also a buttload of flat health. So pretty solid defensive option if you're new to the game and don't have alternatives, and you're just trying to bully your way through Ashes of Malmouth or Forgotten Gods on higher difficulties. This is a pretty solid shield. It's not offensively anything special, and you will definitely upgrade from it eventually, but there's no shame in using it for a time. Warchief's Glory is whatever. Warhammer of Heavenly Judgment is pretty solid, has been requested for a while, and it's finally here. Warmonger's Spalders is kind of like Stonerot Groundbreakers, just has stats on it. It's not great, but it has stats. Windborn Greaves lets you go... No, actually, no, it's not a go fast item. It's a cold item, isn't it? I don't think it's too good. And the Soothsayer set is a great support option, support build option for multiplayer, and it's pretty cool to see it finally get a mythical variant to take it even further. Okay, legendary non-set items. Again, as before, sort of a recurring trend will be stuff like this, where weapon pool skills get +3 on them, if they're present on an item. So that recurring trend is continuing into legendaries. Agony, removed pierce ratio, thank you. Damage adjusted accordingly. I don't know why... I don't think Mythical Agony... Okay, it didn't get changed. I don't think Mythical Agony is base acid, and I really wish it were. Instead, it's base physical with 15% acid conversion, which is trash. I would really like it if it were base acid damage and a mace. I think that'd be pretty cool. Corruption of Garbage Ball. Bonus is redesigned, finally, to focus on one build in particular, rather than no builds. Cinder Plate Girdle. Reduced cooldown on the skill proc. Cool. Cinder Touch removed fire doubt as lightning, which sparked the thread I am presently receiving likes to for replying to. Conduit of Arcane Whispers replaced Aether modifier for PRM with a Vitality themed modifier. Updated Acid modifier to Devastation to be pure acid damage. Called it. Acid Devastation rolling out. Green Meteors changing to Green Meteors. Feels good. Conduit of Destructive Whispers, increased health regeneration modifier for Vindictive Flame, replaced Flashbane modifier with Vitality themed modifier for Drenado, so you can finally roll out with, like, insane Vitality decay ticks, because everyone wanted that. Added 10% damage modifier for Chaos Canister Bomb, which is actually probably pretty decent, especially since Hellfire Mine exists. Conduit of Divine Whispers, added 10% damage modifier. It's always so weird to say. For Aether Vire's Might. Probably still not great. Conduit of Eldritch Whispers, updated Vitality modifier for Sigil of Consumption to an Aether modifier. Conduit of Night Whispers, updated Fire modifier for Vein of Steel to Aether. This conduit was redundant with Vilgazor's Heart, indeed. Probably still not great. I'm not that appealed by Aether Vein of Steel. Conduit of Runic Whispers. Updated Cold modifier for Word of Pain to Aether. That's probably decent. Updated modifiers for Horn of Gandar with Chaos modifiers for Word of Pain. Also probably decent. Increased Aether damage modifier for Flames of Renifar to 124. Probably very good. Alright, this conduit winning out so far among all the rest. Conduit of Undying Whispers. Updated Raised Skeleton modifiers to fire damage. Updated Cold damage modifier for Bone Harvest to Chaos damage. Replaced Reap Spirit modifier with Chaos support for Ill Omen. The damage modifier has been rolled into the base skill. Huh. So none of those look good. But this is nice. Conduit of Warring Whispers. I like that this is alphabetical and not, class-based. Conduit of Warring Whispers. Updated physical damage modifier for blade art to cold damage. Increase of cold blade art. Sure. Increased fire damage modifier for blade art. Updated fire damage for force wave to cold. This conduit was redundant with Shard of the Eternal Flame. Okay, sure. Conduit of Wild Whispers. Replaced Madrogen's Pact modifier with Pierce support for Devouring Swarm. This conduit was redundant with Heart of the Sand King. Added 12% damage modifier for Aether Primal Strike and reduced its Aether damage modifier to 240. We're gonna get to Aether Primal Strike in a minute, just you wait. But this is actually looking pretty strong, to be quite honest. Crown of the Revenant King, replaced bonus to save threat, yeah. Crypt Stalker added minus 15% bleed resist to the granted skill. Sure. Earth Shatter Treads added % fire damage, which it probably should have had all along. Edge of Sanity increased Aether damage modifier for Markovian's advantage and Reaping Strike to 110. Ember Core Shoulder Guard reduced cooldown on the skill proc. Didn't this used to crash the game? Or was that some other shoulder? It was some fire-themed shoulder guard that would crash the game whenever it's skill procced. Dread Knight's Guard gets +3 to a weapon pool skill. Dread Knight's Lead Plates. Increased bonuses to Reaping Strike and Shattering Smash to +3. Look at that. Dread Fire reduced % Aether and fire resist reduction on the steel part to 8%. Oh, that's another thing. We're gonna see a lot of reductions to Aether resist reduction on items, so get ready for that. Gildor's Pulverizer increased pierce damage to 74 to 95 and increased health to a flat 800. Wowza. Gladiator's Distinction increased weapon pool skills to +3. Pretty neat, actually. Gut Ripper increased pierce ratio to 100%, damage adjusted accordingly. Nice. Nice. Still a bleed item and not a pierce one, but nice. Nash Core's Head increased physical damage to 260%. Before this patch came out, the initial variant of the changelog said 560%, which was insane. It wasn't actually like that when we got it in testing, of course, but man, this was actually 560%, we'd be making some different builds right now, okay? Inashka's Corrupted Head increased % physical damage to 260%. Same thing here, it was also 560. Mark of Dark Dreams, reduced bonus to Nightfall to +2. Markovian Stratagem gets its weapon pool skill to +3. Mythical Adversary, removed % pierce ratio, so it's a physical item at long last, damage adjusted accordingly. Mythical Arcanor, Blade of the Luminari, increased elemental damage modifier for force wave to 280, and added 100% of pierced out as elemental modifier for it. Interesting. I'll be willing to try that despite not liking elemental damage. Mythical Avenger of Karin, reduced physical retaliation to 446 to 640. What stupid value is this? Hello? This change was originally for 1.1.5.2, but was lost in the Chthonic Void and never made it live. Okay. Mythical Azraka's Sands. Added 12% attack damage converted to health modifier for Horn of Gandar. You can't convince me to make a Horn of Gandar build. I'm sorry. Mythical Band of the Eternal Heart. Added +2 to Panetti's Replicating Missile. I don't know if I actually want to go into this. Basically, this started some internal strife among the playtesters. But basically, this is for cold PRM, of which the weren't good means to max out the base skill with particular cold POM weapon choices. But because it's such a specific use case, it started some infighting among the Praetorians. But that's what this is for. Mythical Bane of the Winter King. Increased cold damage to 79 to 119. Increased cold damage for pets on the granted skill. Removed cooldown reduction. No! No! Why? Mythical Bladebreaker Sash gets its weapon pool skill to +3. Mythical Blood Sigil of Chthon. Increased Chaos damage modifier for Vire's Might to 150. Added 100% of Pierce. Now does Chaos modifier for it. Does Vire's Might have Pierce damage? Increased percent fire doubt as Chaos. It does have Pierce damage. It's like a very small sub amount, doesn't it? Increased percent fire doubt as Chaos modifier for Fire Strike to 100%. Still worse than the non-mythical version. As ever it shall be. Mythical Bloodsong. Increased bleed damage modifiers for Baldathian Shears and Whirling Death to 70 over 3 seconds, not divisible by 3. Throw this out. Mythical Bone Weave Leggings added added percent cold damage. Mythical Bramblevine. Increased Rata modifier for Grasping Vines to 6%. And reduced Rata modifier for Righteous Fervor to 4%. Getting blown out of the water. This is pretty cool, though. Mythical Chaos. I never say this right, and every time I mispronounce it, someone in my chat corrects me. Chelsea's of Barbaros gets its weapon pool skill to +3. Mythical Chilling Grip of Hagarad. Increased cold damage modifier for Grenado to 155. Neat. Mythical Cinderstorm. Increased OA to 60. Added 100% of physical doubt as fire modifiers for Vire's Might and Judgment. And increased burn damage modifier for Vire's Might to 120 over 2 seconds. Sure. Cinderstorm is one of those items that I have a bias against because it keeps being taken in directions that I didn't want it to be taken in. And so I inherently think it's worse than it necessarily is. But this still doesn't look appealing to me. So that's that. I don't know. Mythical Cord of Deception increased defensive ability to 80. Which is pretty okay, I suppose. Mythical Cord of Violent Decay increased offensive ability to 98 because they couldn't just give it the 2 extra to round it off at 100. Mythical Crescent Moon increased weapon damage modifier for Grenado to 45%. Decent. Crest of Winter Fortitude increased cold damage modifier for Blitz to 140. Mythical Crimson Claws increased bleed damage modifier for Feral 100 to 110 over 3 seconds. Timeout, I need to look at something. Okay, I can't find the thing I was supposed to look at. I thought this had a modifier that it does. Oh, I'm no longer full screened. I thought this had a modifier added to it that it no longer does. Evidently. But maybe I'm losing my mind and it already had that modifier. I don't know. Mythical Crown of the Revenant King. Place bonus to Safeguard with +3 to Smite. Increased its Vitality damage modifier to 160. The modifier to what? Oh, I assume Smite, I suppose. Added 33 vitality damage and 100% of physical doubt as vitality modifiers for Righteous Fervor. That's a not small amount of flat vitality damage being added to an auto attack replacer on a helmet. That's a very large value. Especially for vitality damage, of all things. Mithril Damnation. Increased vitality damage modifier for Reaping Strike to 140. Added plus 2.5 radius modifier for Doombolt, which means you can dual wield this and get Doombolts with 5 more meter radius and just hit your screen. Added plus 2 to Righteous Fervor and added 25 vitality damage and 100% of fire doubt as vitality modifiers for it. Okay. Sure. Damnation's looking pretty solid. I always liked this weapon, but never had a use for it. It's starting to maybe find a use. Mithril Dawnshard Gaze. Increased retaliation added to attack modifier for Ageless Amenia to 8%. And its elemental damage modifier to 90. It just seems kind of weak. Dawnshard Pauldron added plus 2 to Reprisal. Mythical Deathbound Amethyst. Word. Added 32% Pierce Resist. Increased Frostburn damage modifier for Phantasmal Blades to 180 over 3 seconds. Added modifiers for Bone Harvest. Okay. This is definitely welcome. Any Necromancer happily welcomes additional Pierce Resistance. Mythical Death Omen. Increased vitality damage modifier for Execution to 150. Sure. Mythical Direwolf Crest. The weapon pool skill gets its proc chance up to 15%. Divine Steel Shoulder Guard added 80% lightning retaliation damage and 280 lightning retaliation. Doombringer and Dread Knight's Guard get their weapon pool skills to +3. Same thing with Dread Knight lead plates. Mithril Dread Chill Mark increased % weapon damage modifier for Necrotic Edge to 45%. Mithril Dreadfire added 26 Aether damage to the base item and increased defensive ability to 38. Reduced Aether and Fire resist reduction on the skill proc to -8%. Dread Mask of Gurdoth added 25% of fire doubt as lightning. So that's where the Cinderscorn went. Which someone maybe should bring up in this thread. Mythical Dreadweaver added 100% of Pierce Stout as cold and -0.4 second cooldown modifier for Bone Harvest and added 33 cold damage modifier for Field Command. Interesting. Welcome to the stream, SF Hobbit. This is interesting. I don't know what the hell to make of this. This is pretty cool. Mythical Earthshatter Treads added % fire damage, just like the regular versions. Mythical Edge of Death increased % attack speed to 22%. Increased vitality damage modifiers for Markovian's Advantage and Reaping Strike to 170. Yes, please continue to buff my namesake character. Please. I'll take it. Mythical Executioner Judgment. There's an apostrophe S somewhere in there. Added 90 cold damage modifier for Cadence. That is lackluster as all hell. Mythical Exonerator increased offensive ability to 76 and increased lightning damage modifier for Cadence to 90. So you can get 90 cold damage to Cadence. 90 cold damage to Cadence on an amulet, or 90 cold damage to Cadence on a weapon that you can then dual wield and double. Sure. Pepe hands. Indeed. Mythical Fane of Chthon added +2 to Consecration, because this weapon, of all weapons in the game, totally was not the most busted option. Sure. Mythical Fiend Gaze Tome Increased chaos damage modifier for Reap Spirit to 1 to 600. Roll the dice. Mythical Fiendmaster Raiment replaced bonus to Siphon Souls with +3 to Reap Spirit. Mythical Final Stop. Increased Rata on the granted skill to 40%. Which is a big value, don't get me wrong. But the granted skill is kind of whatever. Mythical Frost Red Cuirass gets +3 to its weapon pool skill. Gladiator's Distinction gets +3 to its weapon pool skill. Mythical Golemborn Greaves gets +2 to break morale. I think I'm responsible for this because I was talking about how getting bonuses to break morale outside of taking the Warborn set is pretty much impossible, which is kind of funny because I then made a build that just didn't care about taking break morale bonuses and also didn't use the Warborn set, so I think I did this and then I didn't care. But my original position stands that outside of Warborn, getting break morale is a little difficult. So I'm in favor of this. Mythical Grasp of the Dead added 3% attack damage converted to health modifier for Blade Spirit. Sure. Mythical Gut Ripper. Increased pierce ratio to 100%, damage adjusted accordingly, just like the non-mythical version. Mythical Hadradian Enforcer. Increased attack speed to 16%, nice. And reduced cooldown on the skill proc, pretty cool. I like it. Hammerfall Girdle. I always liked this item. It hasn't been that great though. Increased percent health to 8%. I don't think that will change its not great status, but it's welcome. Mythical Havoc. Increased percent attack speed to 18%. They really want people making Havoc builds. Havoc is a god tier item, and it gets buffed. But no one uses it because LOL ranged cadence. Mythical Heart of the Sand King added 12 bleed damage over 3 seconds, 50% bleed damage, and 50% bleed duration modifiers for Madragon's Pact. Sure. Those are some small values when you really break it down. But technically, they apply to pets. So, not actually too small, but like, this is 4 DPS, okay? Like, putting it out there, that's pretty Mythical Hellborn with a very long patch note. Increased percent attack speed to 28%, that's big. Percent all retaliation to 215, that's big. And burn retaliation to 4,000 over 3 seconds, which does not divide evenly, so take this out of here. Added 1,000 fire retaliation, big. Excuse me. Reduced percent retaliation added to attack modifier for Righteous Fervor to 8%. And increased percent retaliation added to attack modifiers for Bursting Round and Granado to 30% and 36% respectively. Hold up. You get 30% rata on Bursting Round? What? Mithril Hellforged Lead Plates gets its weapon pool skill to +3. Mithril Inashkor's Head increased physical damage to 392 and reduced physical damage up 392%. I wish it was 392 base damage. And reduced physical damage modifier for Albrecht's Aether Ray to 70, because obviously physical Aether Ray was way too strong. I'm being sarcastic. Mythical Inashkor's Corrupted Head increased percent physical damage to 392%. Mythical Gerenthor's Head. I don't remember what skill proc this is, but it does more damage. Mythical Judgment of Empyrean, increased percent crit damage on the granted skill. Judgment of Empyrean. That's the helmet, right? And the granted skill is damaging aura. I didn't know it had crit damage. Or was this a weapon? I don't remember. Judgment of him. I don't know. I'm spending too much time on this. Mithril Mark of Dark Dreams. Reduced bonus to Nightfall to +2. I'm seeing that a lot, actually. Nightfall is going from +3 to +2. Reduced radius modifier for Veil of Shadow to +1. And its cold damage modifier to 60. This item's getting blasted. Increased defensive ability reduction modifier for Amulets was yippee. Well, that item got, like, deleted. Mithril Mark of the Forbidden. Increased vitality damage modifier for bloody parts to 44, and increased acid retaliation to 540. Okay, that's pretty solid. Mithril Markovian Stratagem, plus 3 weapon pull skill, and increased % weapon damage modifier for Markovian's advantage to 45%. I wonder how much weapon damage you can make Markovians do. I bet with some not synergistic items you could push it to 300%. I wouldn't be surprised if that's possible. It'd be a terrible build, but wacky. Mythical Master of Infernal Truth, increased 5 retaliation to 700, and increased % retaliation added to attack on the granted skill to 42%. Reduced fire damage modifier for canister bomb to 55. I wonder if they will ever speed up the casting animation on this granted skill, because that's the only thing holding the skill back. Judgment of Empyrean is an offhand with a sunspot skill. Oh. I hadn't even considered that. Increased crit damage on it. So, slightly better, worse fire Doombolt. Is what I'm hearing. Okay. Mythical Nightshade's Reach, increased acid damage modifier for Shadow Strike to 200. Yay. Mythical Obsidian Juggernaut, the fan favorite, increased damage on the granted skill by an unknown amount. Mythical Okaloth's Visage. Time to pull out my Obsidian Juggernaut build. Okaloth's Visage, increased % weapon damage modifier for Smite to 50%. Mythical Phantom Thread Girdle, added plus 3 to Vending Force. Of all things, because... why? Like... which battle mage out there wants its first modifier of Force Wave increased? Hello? What? Mythical Plague Bearer of Dread, increased Acid Chaos Resist reduction on the skill block to minus 15%. Quill Thrower of Dread, increased % cast speed to 20%, and increased poison damage on the skill block. Neat. Mythical Vakajax. Always like that item name. Increased % weapon damage modifier to 50% on Primal Strike. Reaver's Claw, Reaver's Claw, increased pierce damage modifier for cadence to 60. Neat. Mythical Rune Plates of Ignifar, increased bonus to smite to plus 3 with whatever this shit is. Feral Main Lead Plates, increased bonus to Feral 100 to plus 3. Okay, so weapon pull skills, you've heard it. Streams of the Aether, added % core damage. Siege Breaker, weapon damage for Shadowing Smash, increased to 60%. Sigil of the Bear King, more crit damage modifier to Force Wave. Skyreach Bulwark, plus 2 to Avenging Shield, and added 8% Rata, and 100% of Fire, out as lightning modifiers for Aegis of Menhir. Interesting. Maybe bring that up in this thread. Mythical Soul Catcher, added plus 3 to Sigil Consumption and 70 Vitality damage modifier for Sigil Consumption. Still not an appealing Sigil Consumption item. Mythical Soul Lance, increased % attack speed to 26%, and added 100% Vitality Decay duration. Okay, Soul Lance is questionably getting there, but it's not there yet. I don't know where it's going, but it's getting there. Mythical Sovereign Ruby of Domination, added -2 cooldown modifier for... -2 what, sir? -2 cooldown modifier for raised skeletons. Sure. Spark of Ultos, added plus 3 to Reprisal. Sure. Speaker of the Dead, reduced cold resist reduction modifier for Illwellman to -15%. What was it before? 20? Jeez. Holy cow. Mythical Stonefist Rebuke, increased physical damage modifier for Force Wave to 224, and added 100% of Pierced out as physical modifier for it, and reduced cooldown on the Fisting granted skill. Cool. Storm Reaver. Increased lightning damage modifier for cadence to 150 and its electrocute modifier to 150 over 3 seconds. Electrocute, yeah. Okay. Storm Seer Sapphire. Increased electrocute damage modifier for storm spread to 110 over 3 seconds, not divisible by 3. Get this out of here. Added a 3% weapon damage modifier for it. Is that, like, I get this is balanced because it's storm spread, but is this not the saddest thing you've ever seen? Like, some new players are pick this item up and be like, what the hell is this? That's funny. It's perfectly balanced, quote unquote, in relation to storm spread, but that's funny looking. Mithril Storm Titan Treads, added % bleed damage. Mithril Strain of Maggots, added +3 to possession. I've always hated this item, and I don't think possession will help it. Mithril Tome of Names, added % physical damage. Long overdue. Mithril Venom Lash, increased poison damage modifier for Balgothian Shears to 110 over 5 seconds. Sure. Mithril Venom Spine Greaves. Increased elemental resist to 22% and added 25% slow resist. Interesting. Nice. Yeah, I'll take that. Mithril Vestments of the Great Guardian added 18% elemental resist. I'll take some of that too. Always happy to see more resists. Mithril Viper Fang Grips. Increased acid damage modifier for Ravenous Earth to 75 and poison damage modifier for Aegis Semenia to 85 over 5 seconds. Okay. I'll allow it. Mithril Voice of Dreed. Increased acid damage modifier for Ravenous Earth to 66. Why is it so much lower than this? And its poison damage modifier to... Oh, probably because it gives both of these to Ravenous Earth. So the poison damage subtracts from the acid damage. And its poison damage modifier to 90 over 2 seconds. Mithril Voidrend's Talons. +3 to a weapon pool skill, and its chaos damage modifier to that weapon pool skill, which is Balgothian Shears, is increased to 80 and to 180. Mithril Vortex of Souls, added +2 to Shaman Skills. So, remember, like, 17 years ago, when I was talking about how... Where is it? How 12% damage modifier for Aether Primal Strike was added to this here conduit. Sure, its Aether damage modifier was reduced, but who cares? Now, we finally get to Vortex of Souls, which finally gets +2 to all Shaman skills, which includes Primal Strike, and now finally you can have Aether Piercing Primal Strike and do infinite damage. Yay. It's finally back after, what, 3.5 years? At long last, the absolute fan-favorite build idea has returned. Mythical Warpfire gets nerfed for the 600th time. Mythical Watcher of Aerolon, increased % weapon damage modifier for Smite to 60%. Mythical Will of the Blade, added 8% cast speed. Such a small cast speed amount. Oh no, it's an amulet, isn't it? Okay, that's average. Actually a bit above average. Mythical Wrath of Tenebrae, added 12 to 44 chaos damage, and 100% of Pierce dealt as chaos modifiers for Word of Renewal. Okay. Mythical Wrath of the Ascendant has its Aether Resistance reduction reduced, as has been the case. Mythical Wretched Tome of Odin, increased acid damage modifier for Bloody Parts to 124. That's a big number. That is a big number. Mythical Wormbone Mask, increased electrocute damage modifier for Force Wave to 220 over 3 seconds, not divisible by 3. Get this out. Mythical Zohan's Revenge, nope. Increased all retaliation damage to 120% and physical retaliation to 1,620 to 2,400. My goodness. Increased % retaliation added to attack on the skill part to 18%. Yowza. Nightbrainer gets nerfed. Outlaws Visage added 80% 5 retaliation. This is the non-mithril version. Wait. Yeah? Mithril. Yeah. Time out. So, why is the mithril version getting so little, but the non-mithril version is getting all this shit? I'm not reading this because I assume something is here that shouldn't be. Pandemic. Increased vitality damage modifier for Summon Guardian of Empyrean to 70. Sure. In place of Idenfar, gets +3 to weapon pool steal. Serena's Commendation. Added 60% 5 retaliation damage. God, I hate that item. It keeps popping up when I search, like, various things for medals. And it's never applicable in any build that I ever am crafting at the time. Shard of the Eternal Flame added 220 burn damage over 3 seconds modifier for Force Wave. And added 100% of Pierced out as fire modifier to it. I know a couple people that will be happy about that. Shazul's World Eater. Mythical. Increased percent weapon damage on the granted skill. Stormbearers added 5 retaliation. Stormheart increased lightning damage modifier for cadence to 90, so this has to be the mythical version of it, even though it's not mentioned. Storm Rend added 4% physical resist and increased electrocute damage modifier for Primal Strike to 110 over 3 seconds, not divisible by 3, take it back. The adversary removed percent pierce ratio, we've been over this. The Crimson Claws, okay. Yeah, so when I had to check something, because I was looking for the mythical Crimson Claws note, this is what I thought should be there. Added 86% physical damage and +2 targets and 100% pierce down as physical modifiers for cadence. That's what I was expecting, like, 5 years ago, up above. Very cool. Thank you, Xantai. Very cool. The Grey Knight. Again, part of my many requests for buffs to cadence. And I'm using it on my most recent cadence build, which you will see on the forums one of these years. The Grey Knight added 100% of pierced out as physical modifier for Force Wave and increased its percent damage modifier to 66%. What? That can't be right. There is no chance in hell there's a damage multiplier of 66% anywhere in the game. Man, these patch notes like really bugged out toward the bottom, didn't they? The Pummeler. There's no way. Hold on. Graham Tools. Grey Knight. Oh my god, it is. Oh, because the recharge increases. Oh my goodness gracious me. No one saw anything. That build is mine. The Pummeler. Increased internal trauma damage modifier. I need to full screen. Modifiers for Force Wave and Aegis Amenia to 160 over 5 seconds and 110 over 3 seconds, respectively, and increased their percent retaliation added to attack modifiers to 18% and 16%, respectively. Mouthful. Added 100% of Pierce down as physical modifier for Force Wave. Okay. I'm seeing a lot of this. Tome of Names, just like the Mithril version, it got percent physical damage. Void Rend Talons, just like the Mithril version, got +3 to its weapon pool steal. Void Spire increased chaos damage modifier for execution to 160. Such a meme stat. Warp Fire, just like the Mithril version, got nerfed for the 600th time. Wrath of the Ascendant, just like the Mithril version, Reduced percent Aether resist reduction on the steel part to minus 15%. Okay. Legendary nope. We've been there. Legendary set items. Alagast, Stormbinder, reduced resist reduction modifiers for Stormbards of Eldaloth to minus 8%. Armor of the Eternal Night. It's funny how there's a bunch of increased shit in the non-set items, and then we get to the set, and the first thing we see is reduced and reduced. Armor of the Eternal Night. Reduced cold resist reduction modifier for Ill Omen to 12%. Increased its cold damage modifier to 240, reduced damage on the skill part. But they didn't touch... No, wait, no, and that's something else. Morduneth's Grip. Increased vitality damage modifier for Wind Elves to 120. Okay. Morduneth's Visage. Increased cold damage modifiers for Ill Omen and Wind Devil to 120 and 70 respectively. Acceptable. Black Scourge Covenant. Increased chaos damage modifier for Sigil of Consumption to 98. Sure. I guess. Bone Munder set. Increased percent activation chance for the steel part to 100% on crit, and adjusted its damage to some unknown values. Bulwark of Octavius increased internal trauma modifiers for Force Wave and Aegis Amanda to 110 over 3 seconds and 90 over 3 seconds, respectively. Dark Ones. Okay, let's sit up for this. The Dark Ones nerf. How is it? Reduced damage on the steel part. Okay. Reduced damage reduction modifier for bloody parts to 12 seconds. Nope. For 12%. Nope. To 12% over 2 seconds. Okay. And Dark One's Hood. Reduced damage reduction modifier for Wendigo Totem to 12% over 2 seconds. Okay. Not as ass blasted as I was expecting. But still pretty significant. Probably still very noticeable for what is presently probably the best build in the game. Or the easiest build to do exceptionally well with in the game. Best build was probably Retaliation added to attack Righteous Fervor Paladin. Dawnbreaker's Sledge. Steel part now also deals Rata, Forgotten Gods only. Okay. Dawnseeker's Light. Replaced Rata modifier for Savagery with 1000 Lightning Retaliation modifier for it. Okay. Mythical Dawnbreaker Sledge added... nope. Increased all retaliation damage to 80%. Skill part now deals Rata. Forgotten Gods only. Just like the non-mythical version. Diviner's Vision. Increased cooldown reduction modifier for Devastation to minus 5 seconds. Added minus 10% Aether Vitality Resistance reduction modifiers for Ill Omen. Okay. Hold on. So, the resist reduction was moved from the head to the set, so I guess that's a nerf to the set. Increase Codex. Diviner's Codex. I'm losing it. Help. Increased Aether damage modifier for Reap Spirit to 240. Light's Guardian set. Added percent Aether damage to all set pieces. Okay. Wow. Alright. Aether Jacks coming through, adding it to the list. That's something. That's more than I bargained for. Hera's Artifice set. Reduced cold damage modifier for Caldor's Tempest to 60. Increased its Frostburn damage modifier to 150 over 4 seconds. That does not divide evenly. You can take it back. Increased cold damage modifier for Stunjacks to 40. Okay. Hera's Chest card gets more Chaos Resist, more Elemental Resist. Hera's Ward. Added minus 0.3 second cooldown modifier for Phantasmal Blades, and increased its cold damage modifier to 18. That doesn't seem like a lot for non-spamming Phantasmal Blades. Justicar's Guard set added minus half a second cooldown modifier for Judgment, and 80 fire damage and 120 burn over 3 seconds modifiers for Force Wave. Mythical Hand Gods of Justice. Increased fire damage modifiers for Blitz and Force Wave to 160 and 120 respectively. Alright. Fire Force Wave getting some buffs in several places this patch. Markovian's Bulwark increased physical damage to 71%. Markovian's Distinction increased weapon pool skill to +3. Markovian's Visor replaced bleed damage with physical damage and increased percent physical damage to 58%. Replaced bleed damage on the skill proc with internal trauma damage. Okay. Markovian Sven Rod replaced bleed damage with, yeah, same stuff, except re-replaced, just like Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning. Replaced bonus shield training with +3 to blindside. Mythical Barrelsmith's Salvo. Reduce lightning damage modifier for canister bomb to 60. Oof. Mythical Wounded Dagger of Dreed. Increased crit damage modifier for Dreed's Evil Eye to 22%. Neat. Mythical Markovian's Bulwark. Increased weapon damage modifier for Blitz to 44%. Okay. Mythical Markovian's Distinction. Increased weapon pool skill to +3. Increased internal trauma damage modifier for Markovian's Advantage to 140 over 5 seconds. Cool. Mythical Markovian's Riser. Replaced percent bleed damage with physical damage. We read this, but I guess it's the mythical version. Mythical Markovian's Vanguard, same thing. Rhymeton set, as the non-mythical version. Increased frostburn damage modifier for Horn of Gandar to 320 over 5 seconds. Rhymeton Pendant, increased percent crit damage modifier for Horn of Gandar to 20%. You still can't make me play a Horn of Gandar build. You can't do it, no matter how good it is, and that still doesn't look good. Rotgeist set, added 100% poison duration and increased percent poison damage to 200%. That makes me so happy as a Vitality Rotgeist player. Sentinel of the 3, it doesn't, by the way. Replaced percent... I'm going to highlight a bit more. Bam, there we are. Replaced percent all retaliation damage bonus with 120% acid retaliation. Oh, that's a follower. Thank you, Distro Machine Gun, for the follow. Replaced percent all retaliation damage modifier for Blood of Dreed with 200% acid retaliation. Replaced percent all retaliation damage on the granted skill with, if you would believe it, acid retaliation. Judgment of the 3, reduced percent retaliation added to attack modifier for Counter-Strike to 6%. Retaliation getting blown the hell out of the water. Spell Scourge set, increased cooldown reduction modifier for Devastation to -8 seconds, which is the highest we've seen so far in this patch. Stone Rod set, increased physical retaliation on the steel part to 1400, because people needed to kill Ravager faster. Stone Rod Pummeler, increased percent all retaliation damage to 80% and increased retaliation added to attack modifier for Shadowing Smash to 30%. Stone Rod Ward, reduced retaliation added to attack modifier for Righteous Fervor to 4%. Overall, looks like some buffs, which overall means you're killing Ravager a few seconds faster. Targo's Chest Guard, we're almost to the skills, and from there we're home free. Targo's Chest Guard replaced conversion with 30% of acid doubt as physical. Targo's Helm replaced conversion with 30% of elemental doubt as physical. Okay. The Cataclysm set added percent elemental dot damage bonuses to the set and its parts. Added percent damage reduction to the skill proc. Is that in some way supposed to make up for the loss of +1 all skills on the offhand? Because it does not. The Clairvoyance Focus set. Increased Aether damage modifier for Reap Spirit to 300 and reduced percent Aether resist reduction modifier for Curse of Frailty to -18%. Now I know Aether resist reduction is getting blasted this patch, but is this really necessary? Are Aether Warlocks or Aether Kabbalists really, blasting the game? Mythical Clairvoyance Hat. Increased Vitality Decay modifier for Reap Spirit to 200 over 5 seconds. Cool. Reap Spirit buffs all around. The Void Soul set. Increased Chaos damage modifier for Doombolt to 400. Hello. Void Soul Visage. Increased percent crit damage modifier for Doombolt to 33%. Okay. No, I don't want to read Ozwin's Infernal Avatar set and then reduced. I don't want to read that. percent weapon damage modifier for canister bomb to 12%. Get out of here. Valden's Betrayal set added 110 pierce damage modifier for cadence. Whoop-de-doo. Class and skills. I'm dying here. We're almost through. Abomination. Increased acid damage to 12 and added... Increased acid damage to 12 and offensive ability to 100 flat. Pretty cool. Added percent vitality, decay damage, and increased percent vitality damage to 160%. Eat it. That's all. Attached Saru, increased percent defensive ability to 4%. Blind Sage, increased defensive ability to 40. Elemental buffs for casters, which is kind of neat. They probably would have liked some movement speed on these constellations, but you can't win them all. Candle added 8% Aether Resist. I could have sworn it already had 8% Aether Resist. Unless it was there and got taken away, and now it's back, but I swear the stat already existed. Chariot of the Dead added 25% slow resist, which I also feel like was always there. Crab increased defensibility to 55, crab meta coming through. Basically, if it's an elemental constellation, it has more defensive ability. Magi added 5% attack speed, that's pretty good. Fire auto attackers coming through. Manticore increased percent health to 5% and increased percent offensive... Increased percent offensive ability for pets to 4%. Manticore is an example of how the mighty fall and then are forgotten about. This still isn't going to make it relevant again. Owl increased percent all damage to 30% and added 20% dart duration. This is funny because the tooltip that this is on is stupidly massive. Go look at Owl. It's pretty funny looking. Wendigo added 5% attack speed. Also significant. That's actually a massive buff. Just in general, because there's a lot of builds out there, not just vitality ones, that take Wendigo, because they can convert the vitality on the proc to something else, and get a heal for it. So also getting 5% attack speed while going that route is pretty significant. This is a shadow buff to a lot of builds. Abominable Night added percent vitality damage. Also eat it. Bismiel's Command increased the health and resistances of the summoned pet. Yeah, who cares? Significantly increased percent attack damage dealt by the summoned pet's breath attack and reduce its cooldown. Increase the duration of the summoned pet's resist reduction and offensive ability reduction effects to 6 seconds. Whatever. Not a pet player. Maybe Maya is happy. Fetid Pool. Increased vitality damage scaling with rank. Cool. Messenger of War, Celestial Power. Reduced percent all retaliation damage to 170%. Stone Form. Celestial Power. Reduced percent all retaliation damage to 175%. Nerfs to matter. Soldier. Which is the class, not a constellation if you're not watching and just listening. Blitz. Reduced. Nope, starting over. Blitz reduced cooldown to 3.5 seconds and increased percent weapon damage scaling with rank to 360% by rank 16, 440% by max ultimate rank. I'm telling you, level with Blitz. Like, holy cow. Level with Blitz, okay? Blindside. Increased base defensive ability reduction to 50 and its scaling with rank to 270 by rank 12. 370 by max ultimate rank, so 10 per rank, okay. Significantly increased internal trauma damage scaling with rank and increased its duration to 3 seconds. Okay. Discord added 10% damage modifier. They didn't listen. Ha ha ha. I'll make use of that. For those out of the loop, Discord had a 10% damage modifier. This is the transmuter for cadence. It had a 10% damage modifier in an attempt to make elemental cadence more appealing. But what actually happened was that it made chaos cadence more appealing. I'm gonna make so much use out of this. Markovian's Advantage. You're going to see this a lot too. As with bonuses on items being upped to +3, weapon pool skills themselves also got buffed, notably in ultimate ranks. For Markovian's Advantage, increased base damage and adjusted damage scaling such that it returns to its previous rank by rank 12. Percent weapon damage now scales with rank, starting at 110% and scaling up to 140% by rank 12. 160% by max ultimate rank, so 2% per ultimate level on average. Increased base activation chance to 12% and adjusted scaling such that it returns to 25% by rank 9 and scales up to 30% by max ultimate rank, which means it does get more proc chance, which is very significant. That's a groundbreaking change to finally push weapon pool skills beyond 25% chance to proc. That's very massive. Menier's Bulwark. Increased physical damage scaling with rank, increased health regeneration scaling with rank to 85 by rank 12, 200 health regen per second by max ultimate rank. Holy crap. Menier's Will. Increased base health regeneration to 30, and it's scaling with rank to 284 by rank 16, 570 by max ultimate rank. Whew. Zohan's Technique. Increased base damage and adjusted damage scaling such that it returns to its previous value by rank 12. Increased base activation chance to 12%, and adjusted scaling such that it returns to 25% by rank 9, and scales up to 30% by max ultimate rank. Again, massive change. Occultist. Dreed's Evil... No demolitionist changes, huh? Dreed's Evil Eye. Increased acid damage scaling with rank and reduced poison damage scaling with rank. Slightly tipping the scales in favor of spam DEE and not transmuted DEE, which would be a first, because those scales are immensely lopsided at the moment. Nightblade. Armaster's Quick Cut, increased percent crit damage scaling with rank to 35% by rank 8, 55% by max ultimate rank. Increased percent weapon damage scaling with rank to 95% by rank 8, 115% by max ultimate rank. Increased base damage and adjusted damage scaling such that it returns to its previous value by rank 8. Increased base activation chance to 12%, and adjusted scaling such that it returns to 20% by rank 5, and scales up to 25% by max ultimate rank. Again, massive. It doesn't hit 30, but because this is a Nightblade weapon pool skill, and Nightblade has 4 of them, all of them being able to hit 25% is insane for a pure Nightblade build. If you can max ultimate rank all of those, which I don't know whether that's actually possible, but if you can, that is ridiculous for Nightblade focusing characters. Bargothian Shears, kind of the same idea. I'm gonna let my throat rest as much as I can, so same premise between Amaras's Quick Cut, Whirling Death, Execution, and Bargothian Shears. Scaling changes in ultimate ranks. Blade Spirit. Removed cooldown, so now when you spawn in, you just fire that shit off and get all of your Blade Spirits up immediately. Fixed an issue where Vitality and Fire Blade Spirits from item skill modifiers could not cast Shower of Blades. This issue affected Forgotten Gods only, and is pretty funny if I say so myself. Pneumatic Burst. Increased percent total speed scaling with rank to 14% by rank 12, 22% by max ultimate rank. Nice. I've been leaving that at 7 and 9 out of 12 a lot lately, so maybe I'll start investing in it more. Increased base health regeneration to 15, and it's scaling with rank to 92 by rank 12, 212 by max ultimate rank. Nice. I'll see some pneumatic burst buffs. Sure, I like it. Shaman. No Arcanist change. Feral Hunter. Scaling. Primal Strike. Increased radius by 0.8 meters. Thunderous Strike. Reduces radius by 0.8 meters. Upheaval. Increases base damage and adjusted damage scaling such that it returns to its previous value by rank 10. And that's all we get, because it was already a 100% chance on crit. Inquisitor, Bursting Round, Chilling Round, Storm Spread, Scaling. Word of Renewal, increased base percent run speed to 6%, and it's scaling with rank to 18% by rank 12, 24% by max ultimate rank. Word of Renewal, I didn't think was one of those that people didn't max. Because people like movement speed, and they also like defensive ability, and Word of Renewal gives you both. So I'm pretty sure this was always just maxed. So I guess it's overall an Inquisitor buff. Here, have a heart. Bam. Necromancer. Grave Chill. Removed percent attack damage converted to health penalty. This modifier was not functioning, but as the skill was balanced around that, we are going to simply remove it. Cool. No change. Necrotic Edge, Reaping Strike, scaling changes. Reap Spirit. Increased Aether damage scaling with rank. More spirit damage. Oathkeeper. Ages of Menhir. Increased percent weapon damage scaling with rank at ultimate ranks to 415% by max ultimate rank. That's significant. That's pretty good. Shadowing Smash and Smite, scaling changes. Summon Guardian of Empyrean, removes cooldowns, so just like Blade Spirit, when you spawn in, you can just get these guys off and get rolling. Tectonic Shift, increased bleed damage scaling with rank. Sure. And that, as they say, is that. We are through the patch. It is a very long one, and a very good one. The last few patch notes analyses I've done, I've been kind of left saying, oh yeah, this is a good patch, you'll have fun with it, I'm sure. This one is probably one of my favorite patches in the history of Grim Dawn ever. This has revitalized my desire to play the game in general. Like, even ignoring all the new monster infrequents, all the higher likelihood of having better monster infrequents and better items dropping, ignoring all of that, just the balance changes themselves are so refreshing and so positive in general that I've just found it more fun to play. And I've had been taking a sabbatical from Grim Dawn for many months, trying it on and off, trying to get back into it, and it never catching me again. But now, finally, I'm back into the game. I've got many more characters that I enjoy playing as a result of this patch, and all the new items to hunt, and having them roll better on average is fantastic. Definitely one of my top 5 patches in the history of the game, and with that, I'm gonna just hand it off to you guys so you can get farming. I missed the start of this. You're gonna upload a vid. The video should be on my Twitch as a VOD sometime after this, but I don't think I recorded this onto my hard drive, so it probably won't appear on YouTube unless I download the VOD from Twitch. But it will be on Twitch for a few weeks. And yeah, with that, I'm going to give my throat a rest, probably play some Grim Dawn myself, and let you guys start farming items up. So thank you for being here, for joining me on the patch notes analysis, and I hope this was in some way helpful. Go enjoy the game.